In Marvel, I practiced the method of swallowing stars and amazed the Avengers. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 151 Immortal Crystal, the promotion of the Beast God. For the next period of time. The two of them stayed in Taro Village temporarily. Originally, the two of them planned to take advantage of Wanda's vacation time to go to China for vacation. And the current Taro Village is obviously a suitable place for vacation. Of course, this is ignoring the threat of the soul-devouring beast sealed behind the mountain wall. During this period, under the leadership of Zuemo, the two of them also went out several times. This hidden mountain village is located near Kunlun in China, but this does not make much difference to the two of them. The two of them also go out through the space gate, which can also save a lot of time. This day. Zuemo sat on the lunch chair on the second floor platform of the wooden house, staring at the transparent panel in front of him. After nearly 2 months, relying on the silent hill in the weird world, coupled with the constant hunting of his men in this world, his points have once again exceeded 100 million. At this moment, he did not hesitate at all, and directly exchanged an immortal crystal. Immortal crystal, an energy crystal condensed by an immortal level powerhouse, containing the power of the original law of the universe. This immortal crystal contains a part of the fused space-time law. After absorption, it is helpful to comprehend the space law. The points required for redemption: 100 million points. After the space-time beast god was born, Zuemo searched the system for treasures that could make the beast god grow rapidly. Finally, he locked on the immortal crystal. If the space-time beast god wants to improve, it not only needs a lot of energy, but also needs to comprehend the laws of space and time. For example, this kind of immortal crystal, even if it is obtained by an immortal powerhouse, is at most a treasure to supplement divine power, and the laws in it will not have much effect on them. Each powerhouse has a different direction of understanding the law. It is rare to encounter the law contained in the immortal crystal. That happens to be the part that you need to comprehend. After all, there are not many law fragments contained in it, and the probability of being useful to you is lower than winning the lottery. Moreover, even if he happened to catch up with the useful part, it was only for reference. If he wanted to fully comprehend it, he still needed his own understanding. But all of this was not a disadvantage for Zuemo. First of all, Zuemo had asked that the immortal crystals exchanged in the system would not contain the same laws. In other words, if he had enough points, he could exchange for a complete set of immortal crystals containing the complete laws of space-time fusion. In this way, the value would be increased by many times. Furthermore, as the beast god of space and time, Zuemo's clone was the incarnation of the fusion of space-time laws. The beast god clone could easily absorb the law fragments contained in the universe crystal. The only disadvantage was that the price of this immortal crystal was too expensive. Just one piece required 100 million points. There were 10,081 immortal crystals containing the entire set of laws. It was too difficult to exchange them all. But for now, it was the treasure that had the greatest effect on the beast god clone. Zuemo flashed and entered the star tower in the space where the beast god clone is located. A blue crystal with a diameter of nearly 1 meter appeared in Zuemo's hand. Through the somewhat transparent crystal, he could clearly see that in the center, there were several golden threads slowly rotating. Is this what the law looks like after it is materialized? Zuemo sighed in a low voice. Then, with a thought in his mind, the beast god clone beside him slowly opened his eyes, and his body gradually shrank to a size of 100 meters. He gently threw the immortal crystal in his hand into the mouth of the beast god clone. A crystal with a diameter of nearly 1 meter is like a small candy block for the beast god clone with a body size of over 100 meters. The beast god clone chewed it directly and swallowed it. Crunchy, but it doesn't taste like chicken. Zuemo closed his eyes and felt it. As soon as the cosmic crystal entered the body of the beast god clone, it turned into a huge energy and ran around in the body of the clone. After feeling this, Zuemo quickly controlled the beast god clone to close his eyes and control the energy in his body. Only a natural beast god dares to do this. He dares to devour the immortal crystal directly at the planetary level. If it were an ordinary creature, the powerful energy contained in the immortal crystal alone would be enough to burst a planetary level strongman point, but the natural beast god has perfect genes, and the total energy and divine body strength are 10,081 times that of ordinary humans, which can withstand the powerful energy contained in the immortal crystal point as the beast god clone closed his eyes and silently absorbed the energy in his body. Zuemo also withdrew from the star tower. After the beast god clone entered the star level, his main body could also enter the star level naturally, and he felt that it would not take too long for the beast god clone to absorb this immortal crystal point. Just after withdrawing from the star tower, Zuemo saw Wanda leading 2 snow white nine-tailed foxes up. These 2 nine-tailed foxes, one big and one small. The big one has 8 tails, and the small one looks as if it was just born not long ago, with only a lonely tail behind it. From the villagers, Zuemo also learned that this nine-tailed fox is different from the legendary nine-tailed fox. In addition to being good looking, it has no special abilities. It's just that the number of tails will gradually increase with age point after reaching adulthood. It will grow 9 tails. The 8-tailed fox in front of him has already given birth to a baby, which is obviously considered early marriage and early childbearing point. Seeing Zuemo, Wanda came forward. Look, this guy I just found and detained the 9 guardians. Zuemo listened to Wanda's poor Chinese, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Since settling in Taro village, Wanda has also started to learn Chinese. Perhaps because of the improvement of the power of chaos and physical fitness, she learned very quickly. In less than half a month, she was able to communicate in simple Chinese. Okay, as long as you are happy. Zuemo nodded. At this time, they heard a noise coming from the other direction of the village. The village itself is not big, with only more than 300 people. A slightly louder movement can be heard from any position in the village point, but they couldn't see the situation over there because of the houses. Zuemo's telekinesis spread over there. In front of the village point, Guangbo was leading a group of young people to block a car. Seeing the man in black clothes getting off the car, Guangbo's face was angry. Wenwu, what are you doing here again? I told you that this village doesn't welcome you. Wenwu, who got off the car, ignored his shout. He turned around and came to the back of the car and carried a woman down from the car. The woman was wearing a hospital gown. Her eyes were closed and her face was pale, but from her constantly heaving chest, she was obviously still alive. Wenwu carried the woman to Guangbo. He knelt down directly. Please, save Yingli. Chapter 152. Wenwu's request for help. Guangbo looked at Yingli, who was held in Wenwu's arms, and his expression changed. He hurriedly took 2 steps forward and checked Yingli's condition. How could this happen? Guangbo let go of Yingli's wrist and looked at Wenwu opposite with an angry face. As the village chief, Guangbo usually acts as a doctor. He helps diagnose and prescribe medicine for the sick people in the village. Naturally, he knows some superficial medical skills from Yingli's pulse just now. It is obvious that the other party has reached the point where he can't save the situation. Yingli can be said to have grown up under his watch. At that time, Yingli insisted on giving up her identity and power as the dragon messenger and leaving with Wenwu. Although Guangbo did not approve of her doing so due to Wenwu's identity, he could only agree to it when he saw Yingli's firm attitude. At this time, seeing that the other party had left with the other party for 7 or 8 years and came back to this state, the anger on his face can be imagined. Wenwu, who had a hot temper, did not refute Guangbo's rebuke. It's all my fault. If I hadn't completely eradicated those enemies before, Yingli wouldn't have been hurt by these revengeful people when I was away. You can do whatever you want to me. Please save Yingli. Wenwu begged in a low voice. At this time, a figure ran out from the village behind at a very fast speed. It was Yingli's sister Yingnan. Originally, she was very happy when she heard the news that her sister Yingli had returned, but when she saw Yingli unconscious in Wenwu's arms, the smile on her face froze instantly. She hurriedly walked to the side and checked Yingli's body. Then she turned to look at Guangbo, who was standing beside her. How is she? After hearing this, Guangbo sighed and shook his head. Although their Taro village was protected by the dragon, they had no way to communicate with the dragon, and from the previous situation, they had never seen the dragon have the ability to heal injuries in this case. They had no waypoint seeing Guangbo's actions. Yingnan and Wenwu's faces changed at the same time. Impossible. Don't. You have the power of the dragon? How can there be no way to save her? Wenwu looked at Guangbo nervously. After Yingli was shot by those people, Wenwu invited countless world-famous doctors, but they were all powerless to treat her injuries. Finally, he was forced to take advantage of Yingli's time to wake up, and came to Taro village with the guidance of the other party. This is his last hope point. If there is no way to treat Yingli here, he doesn't know what else to do. The dragon is not omnipotent. Yingli's injury, even Yingnan with the power of the dragon, has no way. Guangbo heard this, and explained to Wenwu in a rare way. Yingnan, who was standing aside, looked at Wenwu's gaze, and nodded with an ugly face. No, it's impossible. There must be a way, Zhu. Wenwu's face was full of disbelief. From disappointment to hope, and then from hope to disappointment. Anyone who goes through this process will probably collapse directly. At this time Zuemo and Wanda also walked out of the street behind. Through mental power, Zuemo also understood what happened. He took a look at the 10 metal rings worn on Wenwu's arms. Is this the legendary 10 rings? He sighed in his heart. In fact, Zuemo did not have much bad feelings towards Zhu Wenwu, not just because of his familiar handsome face. More importantly, what the other party did, from the perspective of a Chinese, was not wrong. This world is the law of the jungle. With powerful military force, there is no need to be polite to those alien races. Being tough on the outside can ensure the safety of one's own country and people. Zuemo, who was thinking, suddenly felt a strange force coming from the direction of the seal and sweeping towards Wenwu. Is this the bewitching power of the soul-devouring beast king? Zuemo's eyes moved. The mental power in his mind rushed towards this power frantically and instantly dispersed this power. After withdrawing his telekinesis, Zuemo also figured out why Wenwu would be bewitched by the soul-devouring beast king. He was a little confused at first. If the soul-devouring beast king's bewitching range is so large, why would he specifically choose Wenwu to bewitched? After all, there are many people in the Marvel world who are more suitable than Wenwu. If people like the Red Devil and the Blue Devil have the ability to travel through space with their abilities, they can destroy the seal without anyone noticing. There is no need to worry about the people of Taro village stopping them. Now it seems that it is obvious that, because of its limited range and power, it has already planted the seeds in Wenwu's heart at this time. After a long period of erosion, it successfully brainwashed Wenwu. And Zuemo was sure that according to the original development, Wenwu should have buried Yingli in Taro village for some reason, so he was bewitched by the soul-devouring beast king and thought that Yingli was locked behind the seal door. After being rescued by them, after figuring everything out, Zuemo stepped forward. I can save her. As soon as he finished speaking, Wenwu's eyes, which had gradually lost their luster, lit up again. He looked at Zuemo with hope. Really, you didn't lie to me? Even Guangbo and Yingnan turned around and looked at Zuemo with hope. They had seen Zuemo's strength before, and they didn't doubt what he said too much. Of course. Zuemo nodded. He had just checked with telekinesis that Yingli's fatal injury was a gunshot wound in the chest. The bullet injured her lungs. With the current medical methods, there is really no way to treat her. But there are too many items in his system that can treat her. Even the dying immortal can be saved, let alone an ordinary person like Yingli. But I have a condition, Zuemo looked at Wenwu and added. Although he had no ill feelings towards Wenwu, he didn't have any good feelings for him. He was not selfless enough to spend points to save his wife for no reason. Wenwu was not surprised to hear Zuemo's words. After living for thousands of years, he had long understood a truth. There is no free lunch in the world. No one will help you selflessly, except those who are too nice. In his opinion, it is normal for the other party to have a request. If Zuemo did not have a request, he would be more suspicious of the other party's purpose. Thinking of this, he spoke anxiously. As long as you can save Yingli, I will agree to any request you make, even if you want my life. Hearing this, Guangbo and Yingnan on the side also showed a trace of relief on their faces. A reason why they agreed to Yingli leaving with him was that they could see that Wenwu's feelings for her were indeed pure. Hearing Wenwu's words, Zuemo smiled softly. "It's useless for me to want your life," as he said. He looked at the 10 rings on Wenwu's arm. "I want the 10 rings in your hand." Chapter 153, Water of Life. Okay. After hearing this, Wenwu showed no hesitation. He immediately gave the 10 rings on his arm to Zuemo. Although he looked down on the people in Taro village, he knew from previous contacts and Yingli that the people in Taro village were trustworthy. Besides, he had no choice. If he really lied to him, the other party would definitely insist that he would hand over the 10 rings before he would help. If it really came to this, he would also be willing to try. In this case, it would be better to be straightforward at the beginning. Seeing the other party's decisive actions, Zuemo couldn't help but look at him again. As expected of an older mortal who has lived for many years, he has a thorough understanding of things. He raised his hand to stop the other party. "Don't worry, it's not too late for you to hand it over after I cure her." Hearing this, Wenwu's eyes lit up. He was right in his guess. This person was not lying to him. Realizing that the other party might really be able to cure Yingli, even with the key nourishing kung fu he had cultivated for thousands of years, his lips trembled with excitement. Zuemo walked forward slowly. At the same time, the system prompt sounded in his mind. "Congratulations to the host for exchanging the water of life, consuming 1000 points. Water of life, a special medicine formed by adding a large amount of materials to the medical cabin of a high-level civilization. Even if half of the body is broken, it can grow again. This thing is not too precious on the earth that devours the world. Compared with the spirit of plants and trees, it is even worse. So the price in the mall is not expensive, and it is nothing for Zuemo, who still has tens of millions of points left. After the exchange, he waved his hand lightly. A small bottle filled with light green liquid appeared in his hand. The light green liquid in the bottle was the water of life that had just been exchanged. Walking to Yingli, who was held in Yingnan's arms, Zuemo opened the bottle and handed it to Yingnan. "Give this to the other person to drink." Hearing Zuemo's words, Yingnan poured the water of life into Yingli without any hesitation. Afterwards, everyone present stared at Yingli, who closed her eyes. Although they had seen Zuemo's methods before, the people in the village were not too sure whether he could save Yingli. After all, killing and saving are two completely different skills. Being good at killing does not necessarily mean being good at saving. After Yingli took the water of life, in just a moment, under the perception of Zuemo's telekinesis, the part of her chest that was pierced by the bullet began to heal rapidly. In less than a minute, the wound on her chest had completely disappeared. Even the internal injuries were repaired at the same time. In the eyes of others, this process was that Yingli's pale face began to gradually become rosy, and even her weak breathing gradually became stronger. Seeing this scene, everyone around showed a look of surprise on their faces. Wenwu was especially excited, crying and laughing. Until a few minutes later, after a light cough, Yingli slowly opened her eyes. Seeing the surrounding scene, she showed a blank look on her face for a while. It was not until a moment later that she reacted. It must be said that the effect of the water of life is strong enough. Yingli, who was dying before, directly recovered to normal. With all her strength, she sat up suddenly from the ground. "I am okay." Recalling the previous things, Yingli reached out and touched herself, and her face showed an unbelievable look. At this time, Wenwu rushed up and hugged Yingli in his arms. "Great, it's okay, it's okay." His eyes full of tears curved up, and he kept looking up and down at Yingli excitedly. Seeing this, Zuemo on the side returned to Wanda's side. Wanda was moved by the scene and also reached out to hug Zuemo's arm. After a while, Yingli also learned about the incident from Wenwu. She stood up and walked to Zuemo and bowed to him. "Thank you. If you have any orders in the future, we will do it even if we die." Zuemo waved his hand when he saw this. "You're welcome. You don't owe me anything." After receiving the payment, Yingli shook her head. "No, this thing is just a dead object. Besides, Wenwu had promised me before that he would not use this thing in the future. This thing is just a useless item for us. At this time, when Wu also came up, the 10 rings on his arm flew out and slowly floated in the air. A golden halo emanated from it. Thank you. He only uttered 2 short words, but judging from the sincerity on his face, these 2 words were completely from the heart. Zuemo waved his hand to collect the 10 rings in the air. I told you, this is just a deal, Zu. When Wu said nothing more, he bowed solemnly to Zuemo just like Yingli did. Zuemo had achieved his goal, so he didn't stay here any longer and turned around and left with Wanda. But as they walked, Wanda showed a trace of sadness on her face. Zuemo noticed her expression and reached out to touch her head. Dear, what's wrong? Wanda looked up at Zuemo. It would have been nice if I had known you more than 10 years ago. Hearing this, Zuemo also understood. She was obviously moved by the scene and thought of her parents. He didn't say anything, but quietly hugged her in his arms, although it stands to reason that after he reaches the realm of the Lord of the Universe, he can reverse the long river of time and revive the dead. But Zuemo didn't say it. After all, that kind of ability is actually a gift from the original universe. He was not sure whether he would have this ability after reaching the Lord of the Universe in this world. Rather than letting him have hope and then be disappointed, it is better to wait until he can really be sure to do it before speaking. Emo time comes fast and goes fast. She quickly adjusted her mood. Took Zuemo to the grass on the side and found a dragon horse to ride together. Wanda is a person with a strong mind after all. Otherwise she would not be able to cheer up after losing her family one after another like the original plot development. That night. In the Star Tower, the 10 rings emitting golden light slowly floated in front of Zuemo. He stretched out his hands gently. The 10 rings in front of him seemed to receive some kind of command and automatically put on his arms. Zuemo tried to punch. It seemed that the improvement in his strength was negligible. In his feeling, the limit of the power increased by the 10 rings was about 100 tons for him who had 30 million tons of strength. There was really no feeling. However, the reason why he exchanged the 10 rings with Wenwu was naturally not for the main body to use. As his mind moved, a skeleton soldier appeared in front of him. With a gentle wave of his hands, the 10 rings on his arms were directly put on the arms of the skeleton soldier in front of him. After that, the skeleton soldier disappeared in front of him with the 10 rings. It really works. Seeing this scene, Zuemo showed a hint of joy on his face. Chapter 154 Bully Magua. The 10 rings are different from the treasures in the devouring world that have very high thresholds to use. This thing can be used by anyone. Just bring it with you to greatly improve the host's physical fitness. There is no threshold at all. After Zuemo used the dream walking technique, the only thing that checks his strength is the strength of his body. As long as he can bring the 10 rings to the body in the dream walking world, the strength of his body will be immediately increased to 100 tons, which is the level of a primary war god. In this way, the strength he can exert will be much stronger with the improvement of physical fitness. His mental power can also be exerted to the peak level of a war god. At this level, he can already deal with most enemies in the next period of time. Zuemo occasionally took time to accompany Wanda, and most of the time he practiced in the Star Tower. More than half a month ago, Wanda had already gone to school. With the help of the Beast God's perception of space. During this period of time, he has practiced shattered space to the 2nd level. Sure enough, after reaching this level, he was able to directly break up a space of about 1 meter square and form a space crack by relying on his understanding of the laws of space. After reaching this level alone, his understanding of the laws of space has surpassed those ordinary domain masters. After all, the laws are easier to understand. After reaching the realm master level. Ordinary domain masters still rely more on the cosmic energy in their bodies and use telekinetic weapons and force weapons to fight. Zuemo sat in the training room. Looking at the system panel in front of him. After the initial explosive growth of more than a month, the speed of gaining points in the strange world has slowed down a lot. In the next half a month, only about 20 million points were added. Add the remaining points before. Now his total points are only more than 30 million. with the two big consumers of points, the beast god and the star-eating vine. The points that seemed to be astronomical in the past are just a drop in the bucket for him. Close the system panel point nowadays. The points that the earth can bring him are getting less and less after all. It is too easy for mutants led by Apocalypse and Magneto to deal with ordinary people point after such a long period of slaughter. The earth has almost reached the most harmonious period in history point. Even those who are willing to make trouble dare not show up now point. There are currently two ways to get a lot of points. One is to go to slaughter other planets. He already has a star map of the nearby star field in his hand, and there are detailed records on the star map for those life planets. However, this method does not talk about whether the aliens on those planets are villains. Even if they are villains, if Zuemo does this, it is likely to attract Odin or Captain Marvel point. According to the situation of the last fight with Odin point, he used all his strength and relied on space freezing to catch him off guard, but only knocked the opponent away and did not hurt the opponent. If the Beast God clone is deployed, it is estimated that the opponent should be defeated point, but it is hard to say whether the opponent can be killed point. And there is also a Captain Marvel who appears and disappears. There is no need to confront the two without certainty point. According to the speed of his strength growth, he can wait for a few years until his strength grows to the point where he can crush the two of them before implementing this plan. Another way to get points is to go to the parallel world again. After thinking it through, Zuemo took a deep breath, decided to use the dream walking technique again, to go to the parallel universe, a parallel world point. New York point, Midtown High School point. A Chinese student sitting in the classroom suddenly closed his eyes and seemed to have fainted point, but before he could lie on the table point, his eyes, which had just been closed, suddenly opened again. It was Zuemo who came over in his dream. Looking at the familiar environment around him, a look of surprise appeared on his face. Finally, it started normally. He did not lie on a woman as soon as he came, nor did he hide in the closet or on the balcony, but was in a high school classroom. "Hey, are you okay?" A deliberately low voice came from the side point. Zuemo turned his head and saw the familiar face of the speaker on the right. He was shocked. Bully Maguire, hearing her voice. Toby, who was sitting on his right, was stunned point. He didn't understand what he meant point. Zuemo ignored the other person's expression, but his brain was working rapidly point. At the same time, he glanced around the classroom point. After seeing the sign of Midtown High School on the wall in front of him, he showed a look of realization on his face point. Midtown High School plus the familiar face of Bully Maguire point. Zuemo instantly judged that the world in front of him was the world of the first generation of Spider-Man point, and it was still within the timeline of the first film, but the specific time period and whether Pete became Spider-Man, according to the information obtained now, there is no way to infer it for the time being point. As the bell rang point, Zuemo got up and walked outside point. He planned to find a place to determine the time flow rate of the two worlds, and by the way, help himself in this world to join the army of time travelers. At this time, a figure caught up with him. "Zoo, did you not sleep well last night? I saw you almost fell asleep during class. Did you watch the game too late?" "No, there seemed to be no game last night. Let me think about it." Listening to the chattering words in his ear, Zuemo was almost 100% sure that this was Pete himself point. It seems that his counterpart has a good relationship with Pete. Otherwise, the other party would not be so chattering. At this time, a mocking voice sounded behind the two of them. "Look, aren't these two little trash from our school?" As soon as the voice fell, there were several unbridled laughs. Pete turned his head and looked in the direction of the laughter and then immediately lowered his head. Zuemo stopped when he heard this. Although he was in a hurry, he still had time to teach a few trash a lesson point. Pete saw that he had stopped and reached out to grab his arm. "Let's go. These guys are all members of the school football team." Zuemo turned his head and looked at Pete and came to a conclusion in his heart. It seems Pete hasn't become Spider-Man yet. The people who were laughing wildly behind the two of them stopped when they saw Zuemo's steps, and the leader showed a hint of teasing on his face. "Wow, it seems that a coward is about to stand up." Zuemo looked at the people calmly. "Do we have any grudges with them? Or, forget it, it doesn't matter." After saying that, He walked forward and looked at the few people who were as strong as gorillas according to their body size. They do have the capital to become school bullies. Chapter 155 Peter and Mary Jane. Seeing Zuemo's action, the people on the opposite side became interested, walked up and looked at Zuemo. Why, it seems that you are very dissatisfied with this title. Pete followed up with a stiff upper lip, stretched out his hand, and pulled Zuemo's arm. Zu, the Dean of Discipline. As he said, Pete pointed in the direction they were coming from. Zuemo turned his head and saw a gray-haired old man walking towards this side. In the United States, the Dean of Discipline is similar to the role of the Director of Teaching, who is responsible for dealing with students who violate the rules. The power is very large, such as suspending and expelling students. At this time point, the people standing opposite them also saw the Dean of Discipline coming over. Several people sighed at the same time point. It seems that they are disappointed because they can't teach them a lesson anymore. The young man with blonde hair in the lead walked up to Zuemo, staring at Zuemo with his eyes fixed. You are lucky. After saying that, he wanted to turn around and leave. With the Dean of Discipline here, they have no way to make a move. If you are caught fighting by the Dean of Discipline, the minimum punishment is to be suspended from school. So no one dared to fight in front of the Dean of Discipline. Before the blonde youth turned around, Zuemo's right hand had already slapped him in the face as fast as lightning. The huge force directly made him stagger. Seeing this scene, the faces of several people around, including Pete, were all stunned. They didn't expect that Zuemo would dare to fight at this time. The blonde youth's brain was directly shut down by this slap. He covered his burning face, staring at Zuemo opposite with wide eyes, with an unbelievable look on his face. How dare he slap him in front of the Dean of Discipline? After a moment, the blonde youth came to his senses and smiled. Boy, you're dead. After saying that, he seemed to be possessed by an Oscar actor and instantly let out a cry of surprise, and his body fell to the ground. He hit someone. The men behind the blonde man took a look and noticed the situation. The disciplinary director, who was walking quickly, came forward and began to scold Zuemo on the opposite side. You, pa. The young man in the front had just uttered a word when he was greeted by Zuemo's ruthless slap. A powerful slap directly took back what he was about to say. No. The man was stunned by the slap, but the other men standing by reacted. However, with the disciplinary director by their side, they did not dare to take action and spoke out to seek justice from Zuemo. Zuemo instantly turned into a ruthless slap machine. He slapped 7 or 8 people to the ground. Such a big commotion attracted all the students around. Seeing Zuemo slap 7 or 8 school bullies of the rugby team to the ground, there was a lot of discussion and everyone looked at Zuemo in surprise. Some students who knew him had already cried out in surprise, judging from the fact that these school bullies dared to laugh at him before. It was obvious that the original owner's usual personality was somewhat similar to Pete's. Both of them looked cowardly. Seeing him showing off his power now, he would naturally exclaim in amazement. At this time, the Dean of Discipline finally came forward. After taking a look at the 7 or 8 students lying on the ground, he turned his head and looked at Zuemo. He had just witnessed the scene of Zuemo knocking all these people to the ground. Pete, who was standing behind Zuemo, had just recovered from his shock. Seeing the Dean of Discipline, who wanted to make trouble, he gritted his teeth and walked forward and was about to explain the provocation of these people before. He didn't ask the other party to let Zuemo go completely, but only asked for a lighter punishment. He knew Zuemo's life experience very well. After his parents died, he was the only orphan left. If he was expelled from school again, he couldn't imagine how desperate the other party would be. But before he could explain, the Dean of Studies on the opposite side reached out and patted Zuemo on the shoulder with a smile of approval on his face. Well done. The purple light in Zuemo's eyes receded and a humble smile appeared on his face. These are what I should do. After all, these people have twisted minds and often bully others. As a classmate, I should teach them a lesson and help them turn over a new leaf. Hearing this, the smile on the dean's face became even brighter, but then he turned around and called a few security guards, pointing to the stunned people on the ground. After listening to the conversation between the two, take them all to my office. After that, he took the lead and walked forward. The crowd of spectators around looked at the incredible scene in front of them, and they were all amazed. When did this dean of studies become so sensible? Zuemo ignored the expressions of the crowd and quietly turned away. He found a cubicle in the toilet. He first went back to the Marvel world to confirm the speed of time in the two worlds. Unexpectedly, it had been at least 10 minutes since he arrived in this world, but in the original world, it had only been less than a minute point. That is, the speed of time in the two worlds differed by at least 10 times. 1 year in this world, only about 1 month in the original world. In this way, he doesn't have to rush back. While traveling between the two worlds, he also took the time to help the isotope in this world and reincarnated to the island country where the last lucky person was. Of course, he didn't treat the original owner badly. The same treatment as the second generation rich. He finished everything, even though he tried to speed up. When he returned to this world, half an hour had passed in this world. After Zuemo walked out of the bathroom, Pete slapped him from behind. "Hey, where have you been?" Pete showed an excited smile on his face. "Brother, you were so cool just now." He stopped talking halfway. Zuemo noticed and turned his head to look, and then he found that Pete's eyes were staring blankly in one direction. With a silly smile on his face, he followed the other's gaze. In the distance, he saw 3 girls walking out side by side. The person walking in the middle was Peter's longtime crush, Mary Jane. Zuemo took a look at her. She had long brown hair, fair skin, and wore a purple low-cut camisole. With a pair of blue jeans, she looked just average to Zuemo. The only advantage might be her deep cleavage. I don't know what Peter likes about her, and from the original drama, she is a typical green tea girl. She changes boyfriends as frequently as she changes clothes. Seeing that her back was almost gone from sight, and Peter still looked the same as before, Zuemo stretched out his hand and waved it in front of his eyes. "Okay, Peter, stop looking. You can't handle this kind of green tea girl. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 156, The Fantastic Four, Susan and Johnny. I heard that tomorrow the school will organize a class visit to the Columbia University laboratory. The two walked out of the school gate side by side, and Peter said something. Zuemo heard this and asked casually, "What? Laboratory? It seems to be about insects. I don't know the details." Pete replied with a shrug. After Zuemo heard this, his heart moved. Could this be the laboratory where Peter was bitten? He vaguely remembered that Peter seemed to have been bitten in a laboratory at Columbia University. But he wasn't sure whether it was this time. After all, middle schools organized several visits to university laboratories every year, and the closest one to Midtown High School was Columbia University. In other words, this school has to visit Columbia University several times every year. It wasn't necessarily this time that Pete was bitten. The two parted ways at the school gate. Their homes are in opposite directions from the school. Fortunately, Zuemo had just found his address from a payment slip in his backpack. After a few minutes, Zuemo was already standing in front of an ordinary villa on the west side of Queens. It seems that the conditions in the original owner's home are pretty good. Although he is not considered a rich man, he is already considered to be an upper middle class person among ordinary people. Compared with Peter's family being squeezed into a small house, the conditions are much better. Just when he was about to go in, there was a sound of cursing not far from the street. Fuck, those damn sons of bitches. Zuemo turned around and looked at the end of the street. A man with short yellow hair was walking towards this side while spitting out fragrance. When the figure came closer, Zuemo looked stunned when he saw the face of the yellow-haired man. This person who looks extremely low quality and speaks beautiful words seems to be Captain America Steve, but Zuemo knew that this person couldn't be Steve. Let's not talk about the opponent's face, which looks much younger than Steve. Just because of the dirty look, he cannot be the quality captain. Soon, this figure walked next to Zuemo. Seeing Zuemo staring at him, the short-haired man shouted, "Brother, don't block the road." Do you have queso in your head? After saying that, he stretched out his hand to push him away. Hearing this, Zuemo was really angry and laughed. You know, the road in front of you is 5 or 6 meters wide, and there is no pedestrian on the road at this time, except the two of them. As for blocking the road, he is not so fat that one person can completely block a 5 to 6 meter wide road. Thinking of this, he directly stretched out his hand to block the opponent's arm. Have you ever opened your mouth? Seeing his hand being grabbed by Zuemo, the short-haired American captain immediately wanted to get angry. At this time, a figure chased up from behind the short-haired man. Stop it, Johnny. After a while, a blonde woman ran up to the two of them. Johnny, you can't vent your anger on others. Besides, this incident itself was caused by your mistake. The woman pulled the short-haired man away and looked at him angrily. Zuemo's eyes fell on the woman's face. The woman has long blonde hair, casually hanging down her back. Her wheat-colored skin, a pair of big bright eyes and full lips make her look extremely attractive. Looking at this familiar and beautiful face, the three characters Invisible Woman appeared in his mind. At this time, he finally realized who this person who looked like Captain America was. Human Torch. Johnny, the two are the Invisible Woman and Human Torch siblings from the Fantastic Four. At this time, Johnny, who was pushed away by Susan, had a look of dissatisfaction on his face, but looking at Susan's glare at him, he didn't dare to say anything more, and walked around the two of them angrily and left. Susan ignored the other party, looked at Zuemo next to her, and spoke apologetically. I'm sorry, I apologize to you on his behalf. Although he is usually a bit of a jerk, he is not so extreme. But today his girlfriend got involved with someone else, and he was in a bad mood, so he acted like this. After hearing the other party's apology, Zuemo waved his hand. Now that Susan has apologized on his behalf, Zuemo will not be unreasonable. Forget it, but he really needs to control his mouth. Otherwise he may cause trouble in the future because of his broken mouth. After saying that, he turned around and walked towards the home in front of him. Seeing Zuemo walking into the yard, Susan behind her stopped him again with a look on her face. I'm sorry, do you live here, Zuemo nodded after hearing this. Yes, what's the matter? No, it's just that my brother and I have just moved here. We live next door to your house. We will be neighbors from now on, Susan said with a smile on her face. In this way, we will have a party at home tomorrow night. Why don't you come along and treat it as my apology for what just happened? Hearing the other party's invitation, Zuemo nodded. Okay, if I have time, I will participate. Well, you must remember to come at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. Susan gave a warning, then smiled and turned around and walked towards the house next to her. Seeing the other party's figure disappear into the nearby villa, Zuemo raised his lips slightly. It seems that this world is interesting. He had just come here for half a day, and he met Spider-Man Pete and two of the Fantastic Four. This shows that this world is not a single world. It is very likely that the number of superheroes will not be too small. This also means that there are more villains: Green Goblin, Sandman, Doctor Doom, even Silver Goblin and Galactus. Thinking of this, Zuemo turned and walked towards the room. He planned to check to see if there were any other superheroes in this world. Walking into the villa, the furnishings inside were very simple. The villa has a total of 2 floors, a large living room connected to the kitchen on the first floor. All the bedrooms are located on the second floor, and there is a garden of more than 100 square meters behind the villa. This world is now in 2002. From the information searched on the internet, there is no news about Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four from this point of view. Not only has Pete not been bitten by a spider to become Spider-Man, but the Fantastic Four has not yet been in outer space, affected by the solar storm, and their bodies have changed. In addition, this world does not have the Stark Group, nor does it have a character called Captain America. Zuemo opened a portal to Kamatage. As a result, there was only a bare hill on the other side, and there was no sign of Kamatage. That's right. If there was Kamatage, the Ancient One should have come to the door the moment he arrived. Finally, Zuemo was sure this world is simply a fusion of Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four. After realizing this, he had an idea. The skeleton soldier with the 10 rings appeared in front of him. He stretched out his arms, and the 10 rings flew out of the skeleton soldier, and were put on his arms. Chapter 157 Green Tea Mary Jane. As the golden 10 rings were put on his arms, a powerful energy flowed from the 10 rings into his body. There was a crackling sound from his body. After a while, Zuemo felt that his weak body became strong again. Of course, this strength was far inferior to Zuemo's physical fitness, but the power also reached nearly 100 tons. Powerful mental power surged out of his mind and spread to the surroundings. It enveloped the surrounding area of thousands of meters. All the scenes within this range appeared in his mind. Susan was scolding Johnny in the villa next door. A middle-aged couple was enjoying dinner in the villa on the other side, and a pool party was being held behind a villa 300 meters away. And in the villa across the road, a man and 2 women were tumbling together. Looking at these 3 black figures tumbling together, it's really eye-catching. Zuemo silently helped them find the contact information of their boyfriends and girlfriends in the mobile phone next to them, and dialed it directly. After doing all this, he was satisfied to take back his mental power. Then his mental power rushed into the 10 rings frantically. After a moment, the 10 rings gradually turned into illusory golden energy and slowly sank into the skin of his arms. In the end, only 10 golden marks were left on his arms. These golden marks also disappeared with Zuemo's thoughts. This is the function that Zuemo discovered when he was studying the 10 rings before. As long as enough mental power is infused, the 10 rings can be directly integrated into the body, which is a lot more convenient. Otherwise, it would be better in winter and can be covered by clothes. If it is summer, wearing this on bare arms always looks a bit weird. Early the next morning, Zuemo came to the door of Zhangcheng High School. In the next period of time, although there is no source of points in this world for the time being, Zuemo still plans to stay in this world for a while. After all, the time acceleration in the Star Tower can only be accelerated to 10 times at most. And the time flow rate in this world is more than 15 times that of the original Marvel world. In this case, it would be more suitable to practice some secret techniques in this world than in the Star Tower. As for going to school, he didn't want to waste time in school now. So, according to his idea, he originally planned to drop out of school directly. Otherwise, if he didn't come to school for no reason, the police who came to investigate would annoy him to death. You know, in the compulsory education stage in the United States, skipping classes without reason is already a crime, and serious cases may even face some penalties. Although Zuemo is not afraid of these penalties, there is no need to make trouble for himself. However, after Zuemo knew that he had completed enough credits and could graduate successfully in half a month, he gave up this idea. If he wanted to drop out of school, it would take nearly 2 weeks just to go through the procedures. In this case, it would be better to wait for graduation. During this time, he only needed to take a few days off. Just as he was about to enter the school, a voice came from behind. "Hey, Zu." At the same time, a palm patted his shoulder. Zuemo knew from the sound that the person behind him was the future Spider-Man Peter Parker. Turning around, there was more than just Peter standing behind him. There was also a handsome young man standing next to Peter, who was also a familiar face. Little Green Goblin, Harry Osborn. But at this time, the other party had not changed his temperament. After losing his father, there was still a trace of innocence on his face. "Zu, I heard that you taught Bill and his group a lesson yesterday. It's a pity that I was not there." Harry looked at Zuemo excitedly. Obviously, the original owner and his friends should be very familiar with them. Zuemo smiled and said nothing. The 3 of them walked towards the school together. Sure enough, Peter's source of information was very reliable. In the morning, the school organized students to take a bus to the laboratory of Columbia University. Zuemo, Peter and the other 3 walked into a huge laboratory under the guidance of the counselor, looking at the small spiders of various shapes in the small glass boxes distributed throughout the laboratory. Zuemo's face showed a look of realization. A laboratory dedicated to the study of spiders. In all probability, this is the first time Pete was bitten. Thinking of this, Zuemo's mental power began to spread wildly around. Soon, a lone spider was found on the top of the laboratory. However, Zuemo did not interfere with all this, but turned his head to look at Pete, who had a camera hanging around his neck point at this time. Pete looked at Mary Jane, who was nestled in the arms of a male student who was nearly 1.8 meters tall. This scene made Zuemo shake his head. "Zoo, do you want me to take a picture for you?" Pete raised the camera hanging around his neck and asked Zuemo. "No, but your green tea White Lotus should be very happy." After saying that, Zuemo looked in the direction of Mary Jane. Hearing Zuemo's ridicule, Tony showed an embarrassed expression on his face point, but he reacted quickly. "By the way, I heard you call Jane green tea last time. What does green tea mean?" Pete showed a puzzled look on his face. Green tea means fresh and pure. Zuemo made up a lie. "Really?" Pete smiled after hearing it. "It is indeed more appropriate to use this word to describe Jane." After saying that, he hesitated for a while, but still stepped forward and asked Mary Jane carefully, "Classmate, can I take a picture of you? It will be used in the school magazine, and a picture with students is needed." "Of course." Mary Jane smiled after hearing it. The two were taking pictures over there, but Zuemo noticed that the spider just above Pete was hanging down from above with spider silk, and it happened to fall on the back of Pete's hand holding the camera. Then he bit down on the back of Pete's hand fiercely. Wow. Under the severe pain, Pete shook his hand violently and threw the spider on the back of his hand off. Zuemo took advantage of the fact that everyone was not paying attention and threw out a plastic box that he had prepared long ago. Under Zuemo's control, the box put the spider in it. Although he knew that there was a hint of coincidence in filming Pete becoming Spider-Man, Zuemo still planned to take the spider and some of Pete's blood back to find some researchers in this world to study it. It doesn't matter if the research fails. If something is researched, it might come in handy. After putting the spider in, the small box flew directly out along the ceiling of the laboratory. Just after hiding this thing outside, Zuemo heard a noise coming from the front. Zuemo looked over and saw Mary Jane's boyfriend pointing at Pete with a fierce look on his face and saying something. Chapter 158 Conflict. Wait until Zuemo walked forward. Mary Jane's boyfriend had quieted down after being warned by the lead teacher, but Zuemo could guess the reason. Peter usually looked at Mary Jane with an unconcealed look, and the other person's boyfriend naturally noticed it. He just saw Peter taking pictures of her, so he naturally became jealous and came out to warn Peter. Zuemo didn't bother to meddle in this matter. After Pete's body changes in a few days, he will be able to solve it on his own. He didn't need to worry about it at all. Soon, the whole morning was spent visiting the laboratory. Because we are visiting here today, and tomorrow is Sunday, there are no classes scheduled in the afternoon. After returning to school by school bus, students can take the school bus home. On the way back to school on the school bus, Zuemo noticed that Mary Jane's boyfriend, who had just warned Peter in the laboratory, looked at Peter fiercely from time to time in the car, but Pete was just looking at the photos of Mary Jane in the camera and didn't notice all this at all. Seeing this, Zuemo sighed. For the sake of Peter helping him yesterday, he couldn't wait to watch the other party get beaten. Based on the size of the two of them, if the two of them faced off now, Pete would not be able to fight back at all. But after Zuemo turned around, he happened to meet Harry's eyes. Obviously, Zuemo was not the only one who noticed the other person's gaze. Soon, the car stopped at the gate of Zancheng High School. Everyone got out of the car and planned to go back to the classroom to pick up their backpacks. At this time, Mary Jane's boyfriend walked up to the three of them and looked at Peter with a fierce expression. "Boy, stay away from Jane in the future. If I see you deliberately approaching her again, I will never let you go." "No, I didn't." Peter tried to explain, but his words were not very confident. "Shut up." Opposite, Mary Jane's boyfriend roared angrily. Then he threatened, "I heard that you are staying at your uncle's house. Believe me, I have the ability to make you an orphan again." After saying that, the other party turned around and wanted to leave. But after hearing this, Peter had an angry look on his face. He rushed towards the opponent crazily. He had no complaints, even if the other party wanted to teach him a lesson because of Mary Jane, but threatening him to harm his Uncle Ben and Aunt May was something Peter would never be able to bear. When Zuemo saw this, He didn't stop in point, to be honest. There is no right or wrong in this kind of thing, even if the other party wants to teach Peter a lesson. There is nothing wrong with it. Point. Even before, Zuemo only planned to frighten the opponent back if he really took action. However, he did not expect that the other party would use this matter to threaten Peter. It was a bit excessive to want to harm the lives of the other party's family just for a woman. When he was in the car before, he also learned about this person's information from Harry. Point. This man's name is Feizu, and his family has some modest assets, and his father seems to have some underworld connections. He had no doubt that the other party could really do all this. Seeing Peter rushing towards the opponent, Zuemo pulled off Harry's coat with a thought, lightly waved it, covered Feizu's head, and then pulled Harry together to rush towards the opponent. He reached behind the opponent first and kicked him to the ground. Then, staying within the range of ordinary people's strength, he waved his fist and hit the opponent's body. Pete kept punching without any hesitation. Harry, who was pulled over by Zuemo, saw excitement on his face and joined the two men's actions. It wasn't until 3 or 4 minutes later that Zuemo sensed with his mind that the school security guards were rushing in this direction, and Zuemo pulled the two of them and ran out of the school. While running, he took advantage of the two of them not paying attention, opened the space door, and took out all 3 of their bags. It wasn't until 10 minutes later that the 3 of them stopped on a remote road. Peter and Harry were panting with their hands on their knees. Only Zuemo still looked like an ordinary person with a normal expression. After a while, after catching his breath, Harry laughed excitedly. It's so exciting. Growing up, living in a wealthy single-parent family, his father, Norman Osborn, had very high demands on him. This also developed his well-behaved and obedient character. This was the first time he had done such an outrageous thing. Just for a moment, he seemed to have completely broken free from the shackles that had been on him for many years, and his whole person felt relaxed and happy as never before. Peter on the side had a look of sadness on his face. It felt good just now, but now he had to consider the other party's future revenge. Zuemo naturally noticed the other party's expression. Turning to look at Harry, "You caused the incident. It's up to you to help Peter settle the situation." Hearing this, Harry looked stunned. Wait a minute, it's easy to help Peter deal with the other party, but when did this matter become caused by me? As the president of the Osborn group, his father was not difficult to deal with. It was just a matter of one sentence. But he totally disagreed with Zuemo putting the responsibility on himself. It was obviously caused by Pete himself. What does it have to do with him? Isn't it right? Isn't the first piece of clothing that covered the other person's head yours? Zuemo said as a matter of course. Harry was speechless for a moment after hearing this. He was also a little puzzled, not understanding how his clothes could inexplicably run to the other person's head. Seeing Harry's expression, Zuemo smiled. Then he reached out and patted Pete on the shoulder and walked towards home. It was less than 5 minutes away from his home. This escape route was naturally chosen by him on purpose, and it was exactly the direction of his home. This way, he would save himself from doing useless work. In the back, Harry looked at Pete's frustrated expression and comforted him with a "Don't worry, I will definitely help you settle Feizu's matter. And he will never dare to retaliate against you." Getting Harry's promise, Pete breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank you. Okay, why are you being so polite to us?" After saying that, the two were about to leave when they found the backpack that Zuemo had thrown at their feet. "Wait, how did this thing appear here?" Harry showed a look of surprise on his face. But when he turned around and saw the same expression on Pete's face, he immediately realized that it should have been brought by Zuemo. He remembered very clearly that Zuemo had been following them from beginning to end. How could he have had time to go back and get the backpacks of the 3 people? Combined with the fact that his clothes inexplicably flew to Feizu's head, Harry looked thoughtfully in the direction where Zuemo left. It seems that this good friend is not as simple as he seems on the surface. Chapter 159 Planning, Party. On the way home, Zuemo solved the problem of lunch. At this time, there is no need to worry about whether to eat Chinese or Western food. Although he found it difficult to swallow Western food after getting used to Chinese food, he did not pick it out because it would not enter his stomach anyway. It was good enough to maintain the normal function of this body. Back home, Zuemo came to a room vacated on the second floor. During this time in this world, he planned to enhance his skills in exerting force. At present, his strength amplitude has reached 20 and his mental amplitude has reached 45. This level can only be regarded as medium among the top practitioners of the planetary level. Of course, the reason for this is that Zuemo's strength is improving too fast. It has been more than 2 years since he started practicing, and his strength has reached the peak of the planetary level. It is estimated that it will not take long for him to successfully break through to the star level. Moreover, during this period of time, he also has to set aside some time to earn points in the parallel world. Just taking advantage of the time flow rate of this world, the amplitude of these two aspects is increased. Thinking of this, Zuemo sat down on the floor of the room, and the 46th picture of gods and demons in the God Atlas appeared in his mind, and he began to practice. The increase in telekinesis and physical strength will not change due to changes in the body. Just like Zuemo's increase in strength reached 20. After changing this body, he can still increase his strength by 20 times. The same is true for telekinesis. Time always flies fast during practice. Unknowingly, it was already night. With a sound coming from his stomach, Zuemo slowly opened his eyes. Relying on the strength raised by the 10 rings is a bad thing. It's just that under the strange energy of the 10 rings, it allows oneself to exert extraordinary strength. The body is basically an ordinary person's body, and it will feel hungry in a few hours like ordinary people. And as long as the 10 rings are taken off, the body will instantly return to the state of a normal person. At this time, the sky outside had darkened, and the room was already pitch black. 5 or 6 hours had passed unknowingly. Just as he was about to get up and go out to eat something, a doorbell rang downstairs. He went downstairs and opened the door. Standing outside was Susan, whom he had met yesterday. Susan saw Zuemo appearing in the door and smiled. "I guess you have forgotten about the party tonight. How about going with me?" With Zuemo's strength, it is impossible to forget what happened just yesterday. It's just that he didn't plan to go to this party. It was just a waste of time. However, the other party came to invite him again, and his original plan was to eat something, so going to the party at the other party's house would save more time. Thinking of this, Zuemo also nodded. Okay. After that, he and Susan walked to the other side together. But before going, Zuemo stretched his hand behind his back into a space door. When he came out, he had a bottle of red wine in his hand. You can't go to the other party's house empty-handed. It would be more appropriate to take a bottle of red wine. Of course, he took this bottle of red wine from the collection of a certain congressman. He didn't expect that this congressman was very strong. In every world with his own isotope, the other party could successfully become a congressman. He didn't feel embarrassed to take something from this old friend's home. After all, he knew the other party very well. None of the money in the other party's hand came from a clean source. Besides, the other party's family was not ordinary hospitality. Even when he was not at home, his wife would inherit this advantage and invite herself to entertain her on behalf of her husband. Came to the villa next door at this time. There were more than 20 guests in the back garden of the villa. Of course, Susan's brother Johnny, who had a Captain America face, would naturally not be absent. In his arms, he was holding a woman in a white dress. It seemed that he had just broken up yesterday, and he had found a new love today. Johnny saw Zuemo coming, and there was no strange color on his face. It was obvious that Susan must have taught him a lesson before. After entering the room, Susan began to introduce them to each other. These people were some of Susan's colleagues and friends. However, Zuemo did not see Mr. Fantastic Reed Richards, who was known as the smartest man in the universe, and the last of the Fantastic Four, the Stone Man Ben Graham. It was also possible that at this point in time, Susan might not have become the girlfriend of Rubberman Reed. Another possibility was that she and Mr. Fantastic had been dating for a while and then broke up. It seemed that before the plot of the Fantastic Four began, the two were in a state of breaking up, and the reason for the breakup was that Susan refused to live with Reed. Thinking of this, Zuemo looked at Susan, who was chatting with several guests on the side. It seemed that in an open country like America, women like her who kept themselves clean were indeed very rare. For most women, changing boyfriends is almost as easy as changing clothes. This is also the reason why Pete still misses Mary Jane, like she did when she was a green tea. After all, in their opinion, this has become the norm. Zuemo didn't want to chat with them, but took the plate, took some food, and sat down in a corner of the garden while he was replenishing his energy. Hey, Zoo, why are you hiding in the corner alone? Susan came over with a glass of champagne and sat down directly opposite him. I heard you say that you are about to graduate. Which university do you plan to apply for? As a person who has been through it, maybe I can give you a pertinent suggestion. She looked at Zuemo seriously and said, of course, it was not just Zuemo who came today. The neighbors nearby were invited to come here. She learned these things from the other neighbors, and she also knew that the other party's parents had died long ago. She also had a trace of sympathy for Zuemo's experience. After all, being alone in this strange country, the difficulties can be imagined. Zuemo wiped the corner of his mouth. Looking up at Susan across from him, he naturally understood the other party's good intentions. However, the original owner's tragic fate had long been changed by himself, so it was easy to imagine how happy the other party, as a top-rich second generation, was having fun in the island country. I don't plan to apply for university for the time being, he said truthfully. University is not within the scope of compulsory education, so he naturally does not plan to go to university again. After all, he did not come to this world to study here. Why? Susan's face showed a surprised look after hearing this. Are you in financial difficulties? According to your situation, you can apply for a scholarship. At this point, she paused and spoke. If you don't know how to operate, I can help you apply. Zuemo shook his head after hearing this. I appreciate your kindness, but it's not because of the funds, but my own reasons. At this time, a man in a suit came over from the side. Hey, Susan, what are you talking about? Seeing the figure coming over, Susan swallowed the words she wanted to persuade. After all, this was Zuemo's private matter, so she couldn't discuss it in front of others. Thinking of this, she took a deep breath, a smile appeared on her face, and she looked at the man in a suit, who was walking over. Let me introduce you. This is my neighbor, Zuemo. After that, she turned around and introduced the man in a suit to Zuemo. This is my current boss, Mr. Victor. Chapter 160 Pete's Confession. Zuemo heard this. He carefully looked at the man in a suit opposite him. Victor. He is also the biggest villain in the Fantastic Four. Dr. Doom, however, judging from the time point, the opponent has not yet turned evil. If he solves the opponent now, Zuemo is sure that he will not get too many points. When he was in the Marvel world, Zuemo had already let his men try it. For people with bad intentions, the points they get are also related to the amount of evil they have done. Before the opponent does evil, solve the opponent, and get very few points. Since then, Zuemo understood that the system determines the points based on the actual actions of the opponent, which is the so-called judging by deeds rather than heart. Therefore, in the current situation, Zuemo's response strategy is to raise pigs. Wait until the opponent is fattened before killing. As for those who died in the hands of the villains in this process, Zuemo has no intention of damaging his own interests. In order to save those strangers from the beginning to the end, he has adhered to a principle. If it does not affect himself, and is a good thing that comes easily, he does not mind helping. But he lost a lot of points. To save them sorry, they'd better die. After Victor came here, he began to discuss some work matters with Susan. Zuemo ignored the two of them and concentrated on the food on the plate in front of him. However, after hearing the two discussing words like aerospace, Zuemo's movements gradually slowed down. The birth of the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom was due to a space exploration. It seems that the time when they suffered from the solar storm and mutated is not too far away. After a while. After enjoying dinner, Zuemo greeted Susan and turned around and left. His original purpose was to come here for a meal. Now that his purpose has been achieved, and from the conversation between the two, he has roughly understood the current time period, so he doesn't need to waste time with them here. Susan did not try to stop Zuemo from insisting on leaving. In the next few days, Zuemo went to school once on Monday and submitted the leave note he had taken from the hospital. He did not go to school again. He stayed at home all the time, practicing telekinesis and body power techniques. Mary Jane's boyfriend did not come to school since the second day of the incident. I think it should be the result of Harry's operation. This afternoon. Zuemo was practicing the power technique of the thunder knife in the back garden. Wow, what is this? Chinese kung fu? Pete stood outside the fence with a fruit basket in his hand, looking at Zuemo who was practicing, and exclaimed, "Why, do you want to try it?" Zuemo said, trying to open the back door and let Pete in. Seeing his action, Pete looked around and stopped him. No need to bother. After that, he held the fence more than 1 meter high with one hand, turned over and jumped directly over. During the whole process, the fruit basket in his hand remained stable. After landing, Pete looked at Zuemo with anticipation. It seemed that he was expecting to see Zuemo's surprise expression. Zuemo met the other party's expectant eyes with a slightly stiff and exaggerated expression on his face. Wow, Pete, it's incredible. How did you do it? Although his expression was a little exaggerated, Pete on the other side did not notice that he felt extremely satisfied, which could be seen from the corners of his mouth that were almost grinning to his ears. Do you know, something wonderful has happened to me during this period. After returning to the room, Pete said excitedly. The next time turned into Pete's talk show time. He told everything that happened to him during this period in a vivid and emotional way. Seeing the other party's vivid and excited expression, Zuemo sighed speechlessly. When he first saw the other party, he thought that the other party came to visit him because he heard that he was sick. Now it seems that he came to visit him, but this does not seem to be the main purpose. However, the main purpose is to let him provide him with emotional value. He was still somewhat touched that Peter was willing to tell him his biggest secret. This shows that the other party has complete trust in him. You know, he has never told anyone that he is Spider-Man, not even his uncle and Aunt May. Aunt May only found out by chance a few years later. Thinking of this, Zuemo simply cooperated with the other party, with an expression of amazement on his face from time to time. Fortunately, as the boss of a film and television company, Zuemo's acting skills are not inferior to those powerful actors in his company under the influence of his surroundings. Under his full performance, Peter's vanity was greatly satisfied. If you don't return to your hometown, you will be like a brocade robe at night. His situation is similar. He suddenly gained such a powerful ability. If no one knows about it, what is the difference between it and a brocade robe at night? After telling the story, Peter looked at Zuemo seriously. Zoo, with this ability, should we do something? Zuemo looked at him in confusion. Of course, you know more. Can you help me think of some ways to make some money with this ability? You are responsible for making plans, and I will take action. When the money is obtained, we will each get half. At this point, Peter's face showed excitement. "Ah, you short of money, Zuemo asked casually after hearing what he said. But just after asking, he reacted. Indeed, as a superhero, Peter's life has not been very good from beginning to end. Otherwise, the most exaggerated thing he thought of after being possessed by Venom would not be to buy discounted suits with the salary he got back by threatening. It is unique for a superhero to get to this point. Not to mention not eating beef. Even if he is a little less pedantic, he will not be unable to pay the rent. Yes, I want to buy a car, a convertible." Hearing Zuemo's question, Peter hurriedly explained. "Buy a car?" Zuemo's face was full of question marks. I want to take Mary Jane for a ride." Pete showed an embarrassed expression on his face. Hearing this, Zuemo was speechless, but it was not beyond his expectations. Although he didn't remember the original plot very clearly, he probably still understood it. It seems that Pete was indeed a little immature at first, and it seemed that he went to fight in underground boxing matches just for Mary Jane. He also gradually became mature after Uncle Ben passed away. However, this kind of maturity is a good thing for New York citizens. But for Pete, it is a lifelong pain. If there is a choice, I'm afraid no one would be willing to mature because of it. However, even for the sake of this basket of fruit, he should help the other party a little. Chapter 161 Underground Boxing Match. Wait, aren't you sick? After enjoying himself Peter suddenly reacted and looked at Zuemo opposite him with a puzzled face. You don't look like you're sick, Zu. Emo nodded. Of course, I just don't want to go to school. Alright. Seeing Zuemo's expression that didn't look like he was lying, Peter nodded. How about it? Do you have any ideas? What's the idea? Of course it's about making money. Pete spoke. Zuemo looked at the other party with a smile on his face. You should already have some ideas in your mind. When he heard that he had been exposed by the other party, Peter did not hesitate and took out a newspaper from his pocket and handed it to Zuemo. Zuemo opened it and looked at the GG in the boxing match published above with a look of surprise on his face. Sure enough, do you still want to go to a boxing match? What do you think about me going to this? Peter asked excitedly. If you win, the prize will be $3,000. Seeing Zuemo's unconcerned look, Peter thought he hadn't seen the bonus amount below and pointed directly to the bonus amount marked below. I don't feel very good, Zu. Emo shook his head and retorted. It has to be said that due to the living environment he grew up in, Pete's vision was a bit low and such a powerful ability would go into black boxing for $3,000. You know what's the fastest way to make money? He threw the newspaper aside and looked up at Peter. Peter was stunned when he heard this, hesitated for a moment and then spoke. It should be business. Wrong. Zuemo smiled and rejected him. The fastest way to make money is robbing. What? After hearing what Zuemo said, Peter looked at him in shock. No, that's illegal. If you are caught, you will go to jail. Peter, who came back to his senses, quickly waved his hand and refused. Seeing the other party's expression, Zuemo showed no surprise on his face. Well, you can try it your way first and then consider my way. When are you going to participate in an underground boxing match? Tonight. Peter was relieved when he saw that Zuemo did not insist on that somewhat dangerous idea and spoke out his plan. I have all the clothes ready. As he spoke, Pete reached into his backpack at the back and took out his self-designed 0.5th generation battle suit. It was actually just a red hooded t-shirt. By the way, Uncle Ben said that if you are okay, he will ask you to come over and have dinner together later. An hour later, Zuemo sat at the dining table at Pete's home. Come on, Zuemo, have a taste. This is a chicken soup I made based on the method you told me last time. Didn't you say that after getting sick, drinking this will help you recover faster? Aunt May smiled and stood up, filled a bowl of chicken soup, and handed it to him. Thank you, Aunt May. I really have nothing to do. I just need to rest for a few days. Zu. Emo stood up, took the chicken soup, and explained. Then he took a bite and gave Aunt May a thumbs up. Great. Hearing this, Aunt May had a happy smile on her face. As long as you like it. The dinner ended in a pleasant atmosphere. Zuemo also realized that the relationship between the original body and the Pete family seemed to be very good. After dinner, it was not yet 6 o'clock. Uncle Ben put on his coat. Peter, didn't you say you two were going to the library? I'll take you there. No, Uncle, we can just take the subway. Hearing that Uncle Ben was about to send them there, Peter, who came down from upstairs, quickly spoke to stop him. They were going to have a boxing match today, and Uncle Ben couldn't let Uncle Ben know about this. It's okay, I just happened to go out and get some fresh air. Seeing the other party's insistence, Peter could only nod. Uncle Ben drives an old white Ford. Zuemo looked at the retro decoration inside the car and wondered whether he should buy a car too. You can't always rely on the space door to go out. Soon, the car stopped in front of a library not far from the underground boxing ring. Okay, Uncle Ben, please go back first. We will go to a classmate's house for a party later. Peter may be late to go back tonight. After getting out of the car, Zuemo waved to Uncle Ben in the car. Okay, take care of yourselves. After hearing this, Uncle Ben, who had planned to wait for the two of them here, had no choice but to give up the idea, told the two of them, and then drove away directly. Watching the car disappear from sight, Peter breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, I have you to cover for me. After saying that, Peter eagerly entered the underground boxing ring with Zuemo. As soon as they entered, a noisy sound penetrated their ears. in the huge underground boxing ring, except for a huge iron cage in the middle. The surroundings were filled with spectators shouting at the top of their lungs within the iron cage. Two tall, strong men were fighting back and forth. Peter looked at the scene in the iron cage with a fiery look in his eyes. Zuemo, who was behind, watched this scene expressionlessly. In his opinion, these fights looked completely unwatchable. In comparison, the women in bikinis standing in the passage leading to the iron cage were more attractive to him. Soon, Pete signed up backstage. Compared to those performance-type boxing matches like those in WWE, the boxing match was undoubtedly much more real. The participants would not die, but the probability of disability was as high as 40%, and the probability of injury was as high as more than 90%. This also led to the fact that there were not as many people who signed up as imagined. After all, let alone disability, even if the injury was slightly more serious, the pitiful bonuses were not enough for medical expenses. Therefore, most of the time, it was up to the boxers in the boxing ring to hold on. After Pete signed up, naturally, the real registered players were arranged first, and the next match was between him and the winner of the two people on the field. Knowing that the person in charge of the boxing ring would only pay Pete $100 because he ended the fight too quickly, Zuemo did not remind him. After all, he came here together, not really for the $3,000. Soon, the fight in the iron cage was over, and it was Pete's turn to go on stage. With the boos from the audience, Pete walked onto the ring at a loss at this time. He was wearing a red mask on his head and a red sweater that didn't fit him well, which did look a bit low. However, the fight that ended quickly still excited the people watching the game around. Zuemo even saw a white young woman next to him take off her entire top. She swung it directly on the stands. She didn't even care about the dirty hands that were stretched out from the side. She even seemed to be planning to have a live broadcast with the man next to her. It's really the free America. Seeing this, Zuemo sighed and then walked out of the ring. Chapter 162. Don't worry, dizziness is normal. Waiting at the door for less than 3 minutes, Zuemo saw a man with a gun in his left hand and a handbag in his right hand running out of the door in a panic. After the man came out, he looked around. Then he came to a car next to Zuemo and pointed the gun at a girl sitting in the driver's seat. Get out of the car. The woman saw this, opened the door with a horrified face, and got out of the car with her hands raised above her head. After the man got in the car, after a deafening throttle sound, the car drove away like an arrow. As soon as the car left, Pete walked out of the door with a decadent look on his face, holding a $100 bill in his hand. These people are too much. Pete began to complain about the person in charge of the boxing ring who was only willing to pay him $100 because he didn't fight for 3 minutes. But he has been punished. Fearing that Zuemo didn't know, Pete told Zuemo that the robbers had robbed the owner of the boxing ring of all his money. Okay, Pete, so if you catch the robber, will you return the money in the robber's hands to the boxing ring owner? Zuemo stopped the other party's complaints and asked. Of course not, Pete answered without hesitation. Then, if the money falls into your hands, what will you do? Of course I will give it to the police. Pete stopped talking halfway. He suddenly realized that if the money was handed over to the police, it would still return to the boxing ring owner in the end. Seeing Pete's expression, he was stunned. Zuemo smiled. Okay, don't worry about it. He reached out and patted Pete on the shoulder. The man is just 2 blocks away. The license plate number is asterisk asterisk asterisk. As for whether to do this or not, it's all up to you. After saying that, he turned and entered a small path next to him. After passing through a space door, he went straight back home. At this time, the sky had darkened, and he came to the practice room on the 2nd floor and began to practice the heavenly god atlas. The 46th picture of the god atlas had been practiced last night. The amplitude of telekinesis also reached 46. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, the 47th picture of the god atlas appeared in his mind, and he began to outline it in the air with telekinesis. More than an hour later, after failing again, Zuemo's eyes moved, and he did not continue. In a moment, the window opened from the outside. Pete crawled in along the outer wall like a spider. Remember to go through the door next time, Zuemo reminded him. Okay, sorry, I think it's not appropriate to be seen at the door, Pete. explained, and put the heavy handbag in his hand on the floor. Then he opened the handbag, which was full of US dollars conservatively estimated to be several million. In the boxing ring, the main source of income is gambling such as betting and guessing. It is not surprising to have a cash flow of several million. This, so much. Looking at the bag full of cash, although Pete had expected it when he was carrying it, he was still stunned when he saw so much cash in front of him. He had never seen such a large amount of cash since he was a child. He looked at Zumo for help. What should I do with this money? Zumo took out 1/3 of it without hesitation, then zipped up the handbag and threw it directly to Pete. I'll take my part, and you can deal with the rest yourself. Spend it yourself, or return it quietly. Pete took the handbag in a hurry, and his face showed a tangled look. The reason why Zumo let Pete do it himself was that he wanted him to improve his life. After all, if he wanted it, he didn't even have to go out. A space door could solve it. But in that case, if he gave it to Pete again, the other party would definitely not accept it. Just when Pete was about to turn around and leave with a tangled face, Zumo called him. Wait a minute, I need some of your blood. Turns around, Pete sees Zumo taking out a nearly 40cm long syringe from somewhere. Looking at this huge syringe that is as big as his forearm, Pete subconsciously moves back 2 steps. Are you sure you only need a little bit? I think it's better to change a syringe. Don't worry, it's okay. Zumo stepped forward, pulled Pete's arm, and lifted up his sleeve directly. 2 minutes later, Pete stared at the huge syringe that had drawn half a tube of his blood and leaned on the only sofa chair in the room. Zumo saw that the other party looked weak. Don't worry, it's normal to feel a little dizzy. After that, he took out dozens of fresh wild ginseng in a garbage bag and handed it to the other party. These wild ginsengs are at least 80 years old. They were all dug out by Zumo from Changbei Mountain. He opened several space doors at the same time, and with his mental power scanning, it took less than 3 minutes to collect all of them. Take these back and boil them into soup to replenish your body. You will recover in 3 or 4 days at most. After sending the confused Pete away, Zumo put away the syringe. Spider-Man was still in a transparent glass tank in the living room. He had to recruit some experts to study him as soon as possible. He thought about it. The first person that came to his mind was Harry's father, Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin. The reason why he turned into the Green Goblin was because the body strengthening potion he had developed failed in his own experiment, which led to the development of an evil personality and gradually dominated his body. However, according to the time, he should have been injected with that body strengthening potion at this time. He also developed an evil personality. Obviously, this person is not suitable. Another one is Mr. Fantastic. After all, he is known as the smartest person in the universe, and he seems to be good at biological genetic research. Thinking of this, he directly opened a space door and stepped in. In a laboratory at midpoint, a man was busy in front of the instrument on the table. At this time, a space door slowly opened in front of him. The man who was fiddling with the test tube in his hand felt the light in front of him, slowly raised his head, and saw the space door slowly opening in front of the table, and his expression was stunned. Putting down the test tube in his hand, he stared at the space door blankly, walked around the table in front of him, and walked to a position 4 or 5 meters away from the space door. At this time, the space door had opened to a diameter of nearly 2 meters. A figure walked out from inside. Zumo stepped out of the space door and looked at the man standing not far away. The man had short hair and wore a white coat. Are you Reed? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 163. Mr. Fantastic set up a laboratory. Yes, you are, Reed nodded after hearing Zumo's words, and his eyes kept glancing back and forth between Zumo and the portal behind him. My name is Zumo. I'm here to ask you for help with something. After A few minutes the two came to a lounge next to the laboratory point. There is also a single bed in this lounge point. Judging from the furnishings on the bed, it was obvious that this was where he'd usually rested. Point. Reed handed Zuemo a glass of water and glanced at Zuemo anxiously. I don't know, sir. Do you need my help with anything? Zuemo heard this and told Peter's story. Point. Of course he didn't reveal Peter's identity, so I would like to ask you to help me do some research and see if I can create a potion that ordinary people can use. As he needs more and more points, he will eventually embark on the road to conquer various parallel universes. In this case, he will naturally need a large number of powerful subordinates. After all, he alone can't do all the things he wants. Undead soldiers are prone to resistance from local humans. In the end, it relies mainly on some subordinates with extraordinary strength. However, although the swallowing method is powerful after practice, it has a prerequisite, which is that the punching power reaches about 900 kilograms. It cannot be said that it is impossible for humans who have not been modified by the virus to reach this level by relying on their own abilities alone. Even if they can achieve it, they are only a handful of existences, and it is not known how long it will take. If it depends entirely on the meat of ferocious beasts, it will be a large expenditure of points. It would be most suitable if we could independently develop a medicine. Of course, Zuemo didn't place all his hopes on this. There are many ways to choose. Just like there is another opportunity in this world, that is venom. Since this world is the world of Bully Maguire, it is very likely that venom will come to this planet in a few years. At that time, all he has to do is get the location of the planet from Venom. Point. It is known from the original plot that Venom, Carnage, and Toxin all come from the symbiote group on the same planet. Point. Since it is an ethnic group, the number will naturally not be too small. Point. He can definitely introduce a large number of symbiotes like Venom and them. Point. I believe that with his strength, it is not difficult to make these symbionts obedient. Point. Even this method doesn't work. Finally, there is a guaranteed method, the sentry robot. Point. Of course, this method is equally susceptible to resistance from all species, and Zuemo did not intend to use this method until the end. Point. After all, there are many powerful individuals in many worlds, so it would be best if everything could be done in secret. Point. Now his strength is not enough to be an enemy of many parallel universes. After listening to Zuemo's words, Reed also showed a hint of interest in his eyes. Of course you can. I'm also very interested in this aspect. However, if I'm alone in this kind of work, the progress may be very slow. So, what you're saying is that if you have helpers, the speed will be much faster. That's right, Reed nodded. But most of the people who can help belong to the military, and they may not necessarily agree to join. You don't have to worry about this. I just need you to tell me their names and locations, Zuemo said with confidence. If that's the case, then there's no problem, but I can't guarantee there will be results. Reed opened his mouth to explain. Zuemo can naturally understand this. Then, Zuemo stretched out his hand through a space door that was opened on the side. When he came out, there were two more things in his hand. It was the genetically modified spider that bit Pete, and Pete's blood. See this magical scene in front of you. Reed couldn't help but ask, can I ask, how did you do that, Zuemo looked at the other part, his eyes eager for knowledge. You can understand it as magic, but for the time being, there is no way to explain it scientifically. Magic? Reed muttered, and then took the two things handed over by Zuemo. Place them carefully aside. By the way, he took a piece of paper from the side and started writing on it. After a while, he handed the note full of words to Zuemo. Here are all the people I know who are helpful to this research. Of course, you only need to be able to summon 1/3 of these people, which is more than enough. Reed opened his mouth to explain. All right, Zuemo took the note and browsed it briefly before putting it in his pocket. Then, let's talk about the laboratory. Laboratory? Reed looked confused. Of course, do you plan to study this in the school laboratory? After hearing Zuemo's explanation, Reed finally understood. At that moment, he looked Zuemo up and down doubtfully. You may not know that the funds required to build a laboratory of this size are almost astronomical. Even those top consortiums will have to carefully consider the construction. You don't need to worry about this either. All you need to do is quit your job here immediately and choose a suitable location for the laboratory. I will naturally provide the funds needed to build the laboratory later. After getting Zuemo's promise, Reed pondered for a moment and nodded. In his opinion, people with such strange abilities are unlikely to have the leisure to come here to deceive him. Besides, with such abilities, it is very easy to make money. After the deal was settled, Zuemo got up and left directly. In the next few days, Zuemo was not in a hurry to find these researchers before bringing these people here. At least the laboratory must be built first. He has given full authority to Reed to build the laboratory. Of course, Zuemo did not completely believe in the other party. Although it seems that Mr. Fantastic is a decent person in the original play, Zuemo has always used the characters in the original play as a reference. Besides, this is a parallel world. He is not surprised to meet a Mr. Fantastic with a different personality. For this reason, Zuemo went to the weird world and brought a conscious weird from there to supervise the other party. There is no way. The only things that can be brought to this world through the dark book are those dark creatures in the villa. Zuemo waved lightly and a figure flew out of the dark book and stood in front of Zuemo. He looked up and down at the other person again. Short blonde hair, fair skin, and a black woolen coat with a retro style. The body standing there was straight. If it weren't for knowing in advance that the other person was a dead weird, anyone who saw it would think that the other person was a young lady. What's your name, Zu? Imo asked. Because of the urgency of time, he went to the weird world and made a request directly, and a letter brought her to Zuemo. During this period, a letter and the others did not give up collecting weird and evil spirits from all over the world. The one in front of them was obviously what they collected in Silent Hill later. Reply to the master. My name is Grace. Chapter 164 Antiques worth billions of dollars. After a moment, Zuemo's face showed a look of realization. He also understood the origin of the woman in front of him. It was from the film and television works of his previous life. The heroine in the island horror I don't know how Lesser, who is in America, brought her from England to Silent Hill across such a long distance. And to be precise, the other party is not an evil spirit. In the hundreds of years since her death, she has not harmed anyone. No wonder Alessa recommended her to herself. According to the other party's docile character and beautiful appearance, when the tourists in Silent Hill see her, they will not only not feel the slightest fear, but will thank nature for the gift. Of course, this is only part of the reason. Alessa and the others will naturally complete the things they have entrusted to them without any selfishness. The reason why they chose the other party is that she has learned a lot of modern knowledge out of boredom during the years of her death. And his special ability is that he can freely switch between the physical and the illusory body. In other words, after she turned into a physical body, she was no different from an ordinary person. She was almost a human with various strange abilities. She was fully capable of doing the job that Zuemo had assigned her. I remember you seem to have 2 children. Right, Zu? Emo looked at the other person's upright body and asked. Yes, but they left 50 years ago. At this point, a trace of loneliness appeared on her face. Okay. Zuemo did not ask more questions and explained the things he needed to be responsible for. You will live in the room on the left on the 2nd floor in the future. Grace nodded when she heard it. Afternoon. Grace went out by herself and got a set of documents that could prove her identity in less than 2 hours. Things like driver's license, passport, social security number, credit card, etc. were all available. Seeing that the other person was more familiar with the situation than himself, Zuemo couldn't help but smack his lips. For someone like her, it was equivalent to staying conscious for hundreds of years. Whether in terms of mind or common sense, I'm afraid that it has far exceeded the scope of ordinary people. As long as the other party wants, plus his own ability, it is also an extremely simple thing to subvert a country. Half an hour later, Zuemo took the other party to a huge warehouse in a remote location. The warehouse is located on the seashore, less than 30 meters away from the coast. Zuemo stood in the warehouse and waved his hand gently. A huge space door opened in the sea not far away, and the other side of the space door was connected to the location of the shipwreck in the ocean. Under the control of his mental power, some antique gold coins and other items in the shipwreck flew through the space door, and flew directly into the warehouse, rented by Zuemo. For 2 full hours Zuemo kept opening the space door and moving antiques. He stopped only after the entire warehouse was filled. After locking the door, he threw the key to Grace. In the next period of time, the other party will be mainly responsible for selling all these things as funds for setting up a laboratory. After everything was arranged, Zuemo turned around and returned home. He didn't have to worry about the rest. The only thing he needed to do was to bring the people on the list given by Reed after the laboratory was set up. One afternoon a week later, Grace stood straight in front of Zuemo, holding a folder in her hand. She handed a stack of reports to Zuemo. There are a total of 319,872 gold coins in the warehouse, and a total of 13,721 antiques. Among them, there are a total of 233,700 well-preserved gold coins. Stop. Hearing the other party's report, Zuemo stopped the other party. You just need to tell me how much these things were sold for in total. As expected of the Englishman who is rigorous in his work. Zuemo sighed in his heart. His eyes fell on the report in his hand. It not only recorded the number of gold coins and antiques, but also marked them out in different categories. There are 7 or 8 categories of gold coins alone, such as how many are perfectly preserved, and among them, there are also ancient Egyptian gold coins, ancient Roman gold coins. The classification of antiques is even more exaggerated. Almost all of them are marked in different categories. Zuemo roughly flipped through it. These materials are recorded in hundreds of pages. I can't believe that these things were sorted out by the other party in just over a week. But it's true. Although the other party looks no different from an ordinary person, he is a ghost who has lived for who knows how many years. Grace paused. When she heard Zuemo's words, she took out another thick report from the folder in her hand and handed it to him. These gold coins and antiques have sold a total of $13.257 billion. At present, the money has been transferred to the card in my hand through channels in various countries. As she said, Grace took out a black card and handed it to Zuemo. Zuemo did not take the other party's card, but moved for him to put it away again. Reed, whom I mentioned to you, will come over soon. In the next period of time, you need to cooperate with him and use this money to build a most advanced biological laboratory. Hearing his words, Grace did not show any surprise. Zuemo had mentioned this to her before. At this time, there was a knock on the door. A moment later, Grace led Reed in. Mr. Zu. Reed came over and greeted Zuemo. He just sat down on the sofa next to him, and he couldn't wait to hand over a document in his hand. I have prepared the location of the laboratory and the required equipment. You can take a look. Zuemo did not take the plan from the other party, but turned to look at Grace on the side. Before that, let me introduce you first. This is my secretary. You two will be in charge of the laboratory matters in the future. Hearing Zuemo's introduction, Reed looked at Grace on the side seriously. When he saw the other party's beautiful face and figure before, he thought she was Zuemo's woman or wife. Of course. Now this possibility cannot be ruled out. Otherwise, how could the other party be confident in handing over such a matter worth billions of dollars to the other party in full charge? Hello, I'm Reed. He stretched out his hand to Grace. Grace on the opposite side shook hands with the other party with a cold face and uttered 3 short words. Grace. Chapter 165. The Green Devil appears. 1 month later, downtown New York. Welcome to the Aerospace Company Carnival. A loud broadcast echoed in the central square. There were 7 or 8 balloons with diameters of tens of meters floating in the sky above the square, and below there was a sea of people. Countless young men and women wearing various cosplay costumes were taking pictures in the square. Zuemo was followed by Grace, dressed as a secretary, walking through the crowd. Looking at the beautifully dressed cosplayers around him, Zuemo felt like he was in a comic exhibition in his previous life. After a while, the two looked at a man cosplaying as Santa Claus in the distance. At this time, the man was surrounded by a circle of 7 or 8-year-old children. It's really unbelievable that a well-known doctor of biology has a hobby of cosplaying Santa Claus. Zuemo shook his head and sighed. Some human beings do feel a little empty in their hearts after achieving great achievements. There are not a few such people, Grace. Behind her spoke calmly and explained. Zumo nodded after hearing this and walked towards the bearded Santa Claus. Now that the laboratory is almost ready, all that is missing is some research equipment. He has selected some free PhDs in biology and genetics from the list for Grace to try to contact them. Under the current circumstances, nearly a quarter of the people on the list have agreed to join the research due to the financial offensive. But the rest are tough bones to crack. Dr. Scene in front of me is the kind of person who really doesn't have much interest in money. Grace has already tried to contact the other party, and the conditions offered are not low, but the other party is not moved at all. The rest are working in some official research departments, and it is not easy to contact those people through normal methods. It was easy for Grace to kill these people, but to get them to help Zumo willingly, although she could do it with a little planning, it would take some time. In the end, Zumo could only do the rest himself. Dr. Scene, who was distributing gifts to a group of children, soon noticed Zumo standing next to him. "Hello, Dr. Scene." When he heard the voice calling him, Scene turned to look at Zumo. After seeing Grace standing behind Zumo, a look of surprise appeared on his face, and he understood Zumo's purpose. He didn't stop what he was doing. "Sir, I think I have made it very clear to the lady next to you before that I'm not very interested in joining your laboratory." When Zumo heard this, a smile appeared on his face. "Don't be so absolute in everything you say. Maybe you will agree to my suggestion in the next moment." At this time, a young woman came over with a little boy of 8 or 9 years old. "Dad." The little boy jumped directly into Dr. Scene's arms. Scene hugged the little boy with a doting look on his face, and it was obvious that he loved his son very much. "Is this your child, Mr. Scene? It's very cute." Zumo reached out and touched the little boy's head. "It's our first time meeting, so I didn't prepare any gifts. I'll just treat this little thing as a gift for you." As he spoke, a ring on his hand flickered, and a black pendant appeared in his hand, and then he put it directly on the little boy's neck. Scene and his wife on the side took a look at the pendant. The pendant was just an ordinary handicraft, so they didn't stop it. "Thank you quickly, brother." The little boy's mother spoke to remind the little boy. "Thank you, brother." The little boy's mother spoke to remind the little boy. A little boy who was playing with the pendant immediately thanked him happily. Zumo handed one of Grace's business cards to Dr. Scene. "If you change your mind in the future, please feel free to contact us." Upon hearing this, Dr. Scene reluctantly took the business card and put it casually into his pocket. "Okay, I will." Although he knew that the other party was perfunctory, Zumo did not reveal it. Instead, he turned around and walked towards the bottom of the building on the side. Watching Zumo leave, Dr. Scene sighed. "Is this person your colleague?" Her wife saw Scene's expression and asked. "Not really." On the other side, Zumo came to the corner downstairs and reached out to pat the shoulder of a young man with a camera around his neck. "Hey, Pete." Peter turned around and saw an excited smile on his face when he saw it was Zumo. "What are you doing?" "I now work at the Daily Bugle, and I'm the newspaper's special photographer." "Really? Congratulations, Zumo looked at the other party's heartfelt smile and sighed in his heart. It seems that the other party did not keep the money in the end, otherwise it would not be possible for him to be like now, having to take pictures of his own Spider-Man in exchange for a meager salary. Zumo didn't mention this again. Everyone has their own persistence, and this is also the other person's choice. Maybe if he really kept the money, Pete would not be as happy as he is now. After saying hello to Peter, Zumo turned around and left. He took Grace to the roof of an office building nearby. As soon as they arrived here, the two saw a green figure flying over from a distance. It's Norman Osborn's incarnation of the Green Goblin. The moment I came to this square, Zumo knew that this was where the Green Goblin attacked Osborn Group shareholders. The other party single-handedly founded the Osborn Group, but was kicked out by the shareholders. Norman Osborn, who developed an evil personality due to the injection of body evolution agents, directly transformed into the Green Goblin and sent all these people away. It was also the location where Peter and his opponent first met. Zumo was on the top of the building, quietly watching the Green Goblin and Peter fight in the square at this time after the Green Goblin threw a few pumpkin grenades to send those shareholders away. Complete chaos broke out. People rushed to escape in all directions. Dr. Sean's family is no exception. But unfortunately, when Pete was fighting the Green Goblin, he crashed a gantry built on the side, and the gantry fell to the place where his wife and child were. Facing the metal frame that was tilted toward him, the little boy was stunned for a moment. "Bill, get out of the way." Mrs. Scene, who was standing 7 or 8 meters away, looked at her frightened son and let out an exclamation. However, this call obviously had no way to wake Bill up. Seeing this, she rushed towards Bill, intending to save her son with her own body. No. Drive. Scene, who was more than 10 meters away, let out an angry roar because he was too far away, and because of the crowd of fleeing people, there was no way he could rush past. He could only watch helplessly as the two of them were submerged by the gantry. Although Peter in the air also noticed this scene, he was tightly entangled by the Green Goblin and had no way to rescue him. Instead, under this distraction, he was directly hit into the wall by the glider at the Green Goblin's feet. Among Chapter 166 Grace's ability, hang glider information. Wait until the crowd around dispersed. Dr. Scene rushed to the front of the gantry with red eyes. He frantically uncovered the huge GG cloth covering it. However, after seeing the scene below, Scene was stunned, and the grief and anger on his face were instantly replaced by a surprised expression. At this time, the mother and son under the gantry were protected by a shield emitting black light. A circular space was forcibly supported by the shield on the gantry. Mrs. Scene, who was holding her son with her eyes closed, slowly opened her eyes after hearing the movement. Seeing the surrounding scene, her face was also stunned. It was not until this time that the two noticed that a trace of black energy was overflowing from the black pendant on the boy's neck and entering the energy shield that wrapped them. As the last trace of energy overflowed, the black pendant turned into powder and disappeared, and the energy shield that wrapped them, after losing the support of energy, slowly disappeared. At this time, Dr. Scene also reacted and pulled the two out through the gap of the gantry. What just happened? Mrs. Scene looked at the pendant that had disappeared from her son's neck and made an unbelievable sound. Now is not the time to think about this. Let's leave here first. Drive. Scene looked at the battle on the outer wall of the building and said anxiously. However, when he left, he subconsciously reached out and touched the business card that he had put in his pocket before. After confirming that it was still there, he breathed a sigh of relief. It was not until this time that he realized that this world was far more complicated than he had imagined. On the roof. Zuemo saw all this. The pendant given to the little boy was naturally condensed by him with dark energy, which could generate a protective shield in times of crisis. He also had this idea after knowing that the Green Goblin would attack here soon. As for whether it would be useful, he had no idea in his heart. Unfortunately, the warlock's eye could not be brought to this world by these undead. Zuemo also tried to find out what could be put into the dark book. In the end, in addition to the special item 10 rings, there were only some ordinary items that could be put into the dark book. Equipment such as the 1000 machine disc and feather god armor could not be put into it. However, he did put in the set of vibranium armor that he had built in the early stage. This thing is enough for him to use now. Looking at Dr. Scene, who fled the square with him wife and children. He did not expect that things would be so coincidental that the two were saved by the pendant. Grace, who was standing behind him, saw this scene and looked at Zuemo with a strange light in her eyes. At this time, Zuemo's eyes had fallen on the glider under the feet of the Green Goblin. This thing is also useful to him. After all, neither Venom nor Spider-Man has the ability to fly. This thing is a supplement to this shortcoming. Thinking of this, he opened a space door and walked in a luxurious villa in Manhattan. The Green Goblin controlled the hang glider under his feet, which was emitting black smoke, and flew in from a window at the back. The area of the villa is very large. This room at the back alone is more than 200 square meters in size. It has been transformed into a studio. In the center of the room, there is a workbench for repairing hang gliders. On the 4 walls, there are transparent display cabinets in which pumpkin grenades are neatly placed. The Green Goblin slowly controlled the hang glider under his feet to land on the repair rack in the middle. Then he jumped down from above. During the fight with Spider-Man just now, part of the control parts of the hang glider under his feet were damaged, but fortunately he managed to fly back. Just when he was about to take off his helmet, he suddenly heard a sound. He turned his head and looked in the direction where the sound came from. He saw a figure standing in front of a display cabinet, playing with a pumpkin grenade in his hand. The moment he saw this person, the Green Goblin was shocked. "Who are you?" He looked the man up and down. He looked about the same age as his son Harry, a Chinese, and except for his whiter skin and taller stature, he looked ordinary. Zuemo's hand holding the pumpkin grenade moved slightly. The grenade held in it disappeared. Seeing this scene, the pupils of the Green Goblin Norman Osborn shrank. "My purpose is very simple. I want the detailed design drawings of the hang glider. Oh, also a copy of the design drawings of various grenades." Zuemo said casually, and from his expression, it seemed as if he was ordering his own servants. Ha ha ha. Hearing his words, the Green Goblin laughed harshly. "Boy, are you still asleep? Do you know who you are talking to? Even if you know my identity, what's the matter? Do you think you can still walk out of this room?" As he said, he took off his helmet directly. The other party was able to find his home, so he naturally had insight into his identity. There was no point in wearing this thing. Although he knew that the other party was not simple, Norman Osborn, who was dominated by evil personality, was proud and arrogant. How could he be afraid of the other party because of this little trick of the other party? Facing Zuemo's arrogant tone, he also retorted sarcastically without any hesitation. Hearing the other party's unpleasant voice, Zuemo shook his head. "Do you think I'm threatening you with your identity?" After saying that, Zuemo was too lazy to talk nonsense with the other party. "Grace, collect and organize the information about the glider and pumpkin grenade in the other party's mind." "Okay, Master." Grace's voice without any emotion came from behind the Green Goblin. When the Green Goblin heard the voice that suddenly appeared behind him, his face changed and he wanted to dodge. But before he could move, his body froze and lost control of his body. An illusory palm had already inserted into his head. At this time, Grace had turned into an illusory state, and the palm that reached into the other party's head was like a real entity, moving under the other party's skin, stretching the skin, and deforming it. And Grace's other hand was holding a pen, writing and drawing on a piece of paper on the table. In less than a quarter of an hour she filled a thick stack. At this time, Grace looked at Zuemo expresslessly. "Master, how do you deal with him?" "Of course, don't leave any trouble." Zuemo put the last grenade in the window into the storage ring on his finger. "This thing may come in handy in the future. The other party has two personalities in his brain. Do they need to be destroyed?" Zuemo heard this and hesitated for a while. "Just destroy the evil personality. In fact, from the original play, we can know that Norman Osborn's kind personality was completely unaware of what the Green Goblin did in the early stage. That is to say, as long as the other party's evil personality is destroyed, the other party will restore the kind Norman Osborn. There is no need to worry about what impact it will have on you." Grace nodded, and after a moment she pulled her hand out of the other person's mind, picked up the information recorded on the table, and left behind Zuemo. Chapter 167. Poor Johnny. The two had just returned home. The cell phone in Grace's pocket rang. After a moment, she covered the receiver and looked at Zuemo. "Drivescene has agreed to join our laboratory, but he has also put forward conditions. He needs 2 such protective pendants." Sure, that kind of pendant was just an ordinary pendant that he casually blended with a trace of dark energy. If he wanted to, he could make tens of thousands of them in 1 minute. It is certainly worth exchanging 2 of these pendants for a top PhD in biogenetics. After hanging up the phone, Grace looked at Zuemo vaguely again. She still hasn't figured out how the other party expected what happened next. Zuemo raised his head and looked at the eyes of the other party looking at him. "What's wrong with you?" No. Grace, who has always been rigorous in doing things, had a rare look of panic on her face. After taking a look at the other party's expression, Zuemo didn't care. "By the way, you have that kind of ability. Why didn't you tell me earlier?" he asked, looking at the other person. Zuemo only learned about Grace's ability through Grace's voice transmission, just after asking about the Green Goblin's words. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have bothered to talk nonsense with the other party, because you didn't ask. Grace's face once again regained that ancient and unwavering expression. All right. After hearing the other party's answer, Zuemo nodded helplessly. You know, when he went to Silent Hill to bring the other party back, because he was in a hurry, he didn't have the ability to ask too much about the other party's abilities. All I know is that the other party has the ability to transform into an entity. In his opinion, all he needed was a secretary that he could trust completely, so he didn't ask any more questions, signed a contract with the other party directly, and brought the other party back. I didn't expect that the other party could give me such a surprise. Where are the remaining people at this time? Grace handed a piece of information in her hand to Zuemo. The information given by Reed also recorded the addresses of some people. Naturally, she needed to find out the locations of the rest. With her ability to read memories, this is not a difficult thing for her. After handing the things to Zuemo, Grace bowed and walked out. Some research equipment would arrive at the laboratory in an hour, and she needed to rush there immediately. Zuemo glanced at the other person's leaving figure, and then focused on the document in his hand. Look at the information recorded above. Most of the remaining biological and genetic talents who have not been recruited belong to the military. Although Zuemo also had a way to recruit them, it would obviously cause a series of subsequent troubles. Although these troubles can be easily solved with his ability, it will undoubtedly waste a lot of his time. In comparison, some idle talents are more suitable. Finally, Zuemo's eyes fell on a name. Ford Herman, a retired professor of genetics at Harvard University, now living in Louisiana, on a small island near New Orleans. After looking at the address, Zuemo was just about to leave. There was a scream outside the villa. Hearing this voice, Zuemo looked stunned. Then the telekinesis explored outside. At this time, it was on the ground at the entrance of the villa. Johnny, who looked exactly like Captain America, was slumped on the ground, looking horrified at Grace, who had a cold face not far away. See this scene. Zuemo understood what was going on almost immediately. According to Grace's cold personality, it is obviously impossible for her to take the initiative to talk to her. Obviously, it was Johnny who came up to chat with Grace after seeing her. Grace, who was bored, directly taught her some lessons at this time. Susan, who heard the shouting outside, also walked out of the room. Seeing the situation in front of her, she couldn't understand what happened. After Grace taught the other party a lesson, she got in the car and left without saying much. Susan walked over to Johnny, who was moving his body backwards on the ground. "Johnny, what are you doing?" Johnny, who was a little distracted, was so excited that he almost cried when he saw Susan's figure. He hugged Susan's calf and pointed at the car away with his trembling left hand, his words a little incoherent. Her hands, head. As he spoke, he reached out and made the famous sign on his head. It wasn't until more than 10 minutes later that Johnny calmed down a little and described the matter clearly. Susan looked at him with a crazy look. "So, you mean that the woman who just walked out of Zuemo's house put her hand into your head, stuck her middle finger inside, and then left your head?" "That's right, that's it." Johnny's head was nodding like a woodpecker. After receiving Johnny's affirmative answer, Susan reached out and hit him hard on the head, then angrily reached out and lifted him up from the ground. "Johnny, did you take it?" What are you taking?" Johnny was stunned for a moment, but he quickly realized what Susan was referring to. "No, how is that possible?" He quickly denied it. "Why are you talking nonsense like that? I tell you, you are not allowed to leave your home for the next week." Susan obviously didn't believe what she said, and she pulled her towards the yard. Grand Isle Island. There are nearly 20,000 residents living on the island. However, these people are distributed in various locations on the island of 4,000 to 5,000 square kilometers. The island is about 10 kilometers away from the north coast, which is considered the economic center of the island. There are some public facilities that provide daily needs for the residents of the island, such as supermarkets, medical stations, and police stations. Zuemo walked out of a small path behind the supermarket point. He naturally didn't have the heart to slowly appreciate the scene of Susan's training her brother, but came to this place directly through the portal point. However, just after coming out of the small path, the sound of an air defense alarm echoed in the town point. At the same time, in the empty square outside the supermarket, an old man with blood on his mouth and body was running towards the supermarket. Looking up into the distance, a blanket of fog was spreading behind the old man at a very fast speed in this direction. What the hell? Looking at the fog, Zuemo sighed in confusion. Run. There is something in the fog. When the old man passed by him, he warned him, and then rushed into the supermarket without looking back. Close the door. Close the door. After entering the supermarket, the old man hurriedly shouted at the people standing behind the door and behind the glass floor-to-ceiling window. Several men looked at the blood on the old man and the fog spreading rapidly in the distance, and then hurriedly stepped forward and wanted to close the door of the supermarket. Hey, don't you see that there is still a person standing outside? At this time point, a young female cashier stepped forward, pushed away the men who wanted to close the door, ran out of the door into steps, and pulled Zuemo, who was still standing there in a daze, into the supermarket point. The reason why Zuemo did not move was certainly not because he was in a daze. Instead, he relied on his mental power to sense the scene in the fog. However, the strange thing was that there seemed to be a hint of weirdness in the fog, and mental power had no way to penetrate the fog in the distance. Chapter 168 Fog. Fog. As the door of the supermarket closed point, the fog also successfully enveloped the supermarket point. Zuemo had time to look at the faces around him point. Soon after seeing an old man in the crowd, his eyes lit up point. This old man was the Professor Herman he was looking for. However, he did not rush over, but turned to look at the cashier who pulled him into the supermarket. The female cashier looked about 20 years old, with fair skin and slightly curly long hair combed into a neat ponytail behind her head. Her fair skin matched her delicate facial features, especially a pair of big eyes. All of them attracted the attention of people around. Her figure was even more slender, and against the light blue polo shirt, she looked full of youthful vitality. Thank you, Zuemo thanked the other party point. Although he did not need the other party's rescue, he should always thank the other party for his kindness. You're welcome. The girl smiled sweetly on her face and then looked out of the glass again. What happened? At this time point, the old man with blood on his body spoke. There is something in the fog. I saw John being rolled into it by a huge tentacle with my own eyes. Hearing the old man's words, Zuemo's eyes moved point. Looking at the scene in the supermarket point, a sense of familiarity came. Is this the fog? The fog was a movie he had seen in his previous life. He vaguely remembered that it seemed that for some unknown reason, the town was shrouded in a sudden fog. Along with it, there were many huge monsters. The movie mainly tells that the male protagonist's family was trapped in the supermarket point after some entanglement. Some people advocated going out to find a way to escape, while others advocated staying and waiting for rescue point, and the final ending seemed to be that the male protagonist who went out to try to find a way to survive still did not escape the fog. After running out of gas in the car, facing the monster that followed, he chose to end his family and then commit suicide point unexpectedly. When he killed all his family members and was about committing suicide, the rescue army had arrived point. Compared to how desperate the male protagonist was at the end point, Zuemo was more concerned about the source of the fog and how many points the monsters in it could bring him point. As the old man's voice fell point, several screams came from the depths of the fog. Hearing the miserable screams, people in the supermarket showed a trace of fear on their faces at the same time. Zuemo ignored them, but quietly came to the back of a row of shelves. After a flash of light from a space door, his figure had disappeared in the supermarket point above the island. Zuemo kept using the space door. A moment later, in the sky more than 10 kilometers away from the island, Zuemo looked at the fog that had faded and almost disappeared around him. The range of this fog was so large that it covered an area of hundreds of kilometers. The entire island was shrouded in it point. Zuemo took out a map and drew a circle on the location of the island above. This circle was exactly the range of the fog point. He was at the center of this range. This should be the source of the fog. Thinking of this, Zuemo moved and entered an open space door. The location near the southern coast of the island. Zuemo flashed out of the space door. The surroundings were white, and the visible range was less than 3 meters. In addition, the telekinesis seemed to penetrate the fog, and Zuemo had no way to perceive the surrounding scene. If he relied on his own exploration, he might not be able to determine the source of the fog in a day. After all, he only circled an approximate range. This range alone is no less than dozens of square kilometers. However, he never lacked manpower, even though those under his command were not considered human beings. But in many cases, they were much more useful than humans. Thinking of this, the dark book on his forehead emitted a dazzling light. A moment later, in the fog under him, shadows flashed by. In less than half a minute, a full million undead troops descended. These troops occupied the ground below for a full 3 or 4 kilometers in radius. As Zuemo's mind moved, these undead troops began to spread in all directions. According to the search speed of these troops, it would take at least 1 or 2 hours to search this area. Taking advantage of this time, Zuemo returned to the supermarket. Before he walked out of a room at the back of the supermarket. He came to the entrance of the supermarket. Because there is only this supermarket on the island, which needs to supply the living needs of nearly 20,000 residents on the island. The area of the supermarket is very large, and the purchasing area alone is more than 4,000 square meters. There is a warehouse for storing various supplies at the back. No one noticed Zuemo's departure and return. Relying on the speed of the space door, he did everything in less than 10 minutes. At this time, the people in the supermarket were still immersed in worry. Who would notice an insignificant person like him? When he came to the back of the crowd, a short-haired woman happened to be roaring angrily. "My son needs my care at home." "What? None of you men can send a lady home?" There were less than 40 people in the supermarket at this time, and men accounted for about half of them. These people turned their heads after hearing her words. "I curse you all to enter the 18th level of hell." The short-haired woman glanced at the faces of the people in the supermarket with resentful eyes, then turned around and walked into the depths of the supermarket, seemingly intending to find a handy weapon. Zuemo ignored the other party and came to Professor Herman, who was standing aside. Professor Herman, hearing Zuemo's call, the professor turned his head. She looked at him with a puzzled look. "Who are you?" "My name is Zuemo, and my assistant Ms. Grace was supposed to talk to you on the phone." Hearing this, Herman reacted. "Oh, are you the one who leads the research on physical enhancement potions?" "That's right." Zuemo nodded. Without these people agreeing to join, there was no need for him to reveal what the experiment was going to be about. "Well, you think you can appreciate that an old man like me came all the way here to look for me?" Professor Herman sighed. He had already learned from Grace that the laboratory was located in New York, which was thousands of kilometers away. "Of course, we sincerely invite you to join the experiment." Hearing that Zuemo still insisted on inviting him under such circumstances, the old professor also felt a sense of being valued. After hesitating for a moment, he spoke. "I think you shouldn't care about this now. You should think about how to get out of the current predicament. So if I can guarantee your survival, can you agree to join?" Zuemo asked confidently. Hearing this, Herman's expression changed. He was really moved by Zuemo's sincerity. In this case, the other party did not consider his own safety first, but actually thought about the laboratory. He nodded without hesitation. "Okay, as long as I can survive this disaster, I will join your laboratory." When Zuemo heard this, a smile appeared on his face. At this time, a short-haired woman holding a baseball bat walked past the two of them. Seeing the smile on Zuemo's face, the anger in her heart burst out instantly. "What are you laughing at, you useless coward?" Chapter 169. How about you die for her? Hearing the short-haired woman's words, Zuemo's face instantly darkened. When the short-haired woman yelled and cursed everyone before, although he felt that the other party was a bit excessive, considering that the other party was a mother who was worried about the safety of her children, Zuemo ignored her. "But I didn't expect that the other party would take advantage of it. Why, your son's life is life, but everyone's life is not. You are a coward if you don't save your son." You called your husband to save him. It's your son, and not everyone's son. Why do you let everyone risk their lives to save him? After hearing Zuemo's words, everyone around him secretly gave him a thumbs up. Apparently, people are a little tired of this woman. 2. Constantly kidnapping everyone. Morally. At first, everyone had a look of shame on their faces, but after hearing what Zuemo said, they also reacted. It can be known from the woman's words that the other party seems to take it as a matter of course for these people to save her son, and it would be a heinous crime not to save her son. Judging from this situation, even if he went to rescue him, he would not get any thanks from her. The woman's face turned red after hearing this, and she was actually speechless. After a while, seeing the eyes of the people around her looking at her, she angrily swung the baseball bat in her hand towards Zuemo. You damn bastard. Judging from the target of the baseball bat, it was obviously Zuemo's head. I saw the baseball bat being swung by the opponent. Zuemo had no intention of getting used to his faults, so he slapped her face first, then slapped her to the ground, and the baseball bat in his hand flew out. As for not hitting women, after his strength improved, this idea had disappeared from his mind. Will ordinary people let the mosquito bite them because it is a female mosquito? Obviously not. Will the emperor let her go just because the person who insulted he is a woman? Of course not. He would not even let that woman's mother go and kill her whole family. Once you are at the top of the food chain, you will no longer be bound by these restrictions. Those who are in need of sex are treated equally regardless of gender. Wait, how can you hit her? She is just worried about her child. Among the crowd, a middle-aged woman with long hair tied back walked out with a look of disbelief on her face. The short-haired woman who was knocked to the ground also came back to her senses at this time. You dare to hit me? The short-haired woman covered her beaten face with one hand and looked at Zuemo with resentful eyes. Then she suddenly got up from the ground and was about to pounce on Zuemo. However, a gun pressed against her head stopped her movements instantly. If you want to save your child, leave immediately. If you just say one more nonsense, you and your child will be reunited in hell. Wait, calm down. At this time, the middle-aged woman with her hair tied back quickly spoke to stop him. Shut up, or you will die for her. Zuemo turned the gun around and pointed it at the middle-aged woman. Seeing the turned muzzle of the gun, the middle-aged woman immediately shut up and retreated obediently into the crowd. At this time the short-haired woman who stood up from the ground had also calmed down. Okay, I'll leave right away. She shakily picked up the baseball bat that fell on the ground and hurriedly ran towards the entrance of the supermarket. Seeing the other party leaving, Zuemo put away the gun in his hand. After the woman left, the supermarket became quiet again. However, these people subconsciously stayed away from Zuemo. Zuemo was happy and pure. In addition to Professor Herman, the female cashier who dragged him in also sat beside him without any fear. Let me meet you. My name is Sally. After sitting down, the woman stretched out her hand to Zuemo and introduced herself. Zuemo. Looking at the woman's outstretched hand, Zuemo shook it. What, you're not afraid of me? Holding the other party's soft and white palm, Zuemo asked. What are you afraid of? A smile appeared on Sally's face. It's not your fault, it's just that woman who went too far. Hearing this, Zuemo smiled. I felt the sweep scope of the undead army. So far, the source of the fog has not been discovered. However, during this period alone, the monsters killed during the sweep by the undead army accumulated more than 20 million points. Want a bucket? Sally took out a small bucket of ice cream from the freezer behind her and handed it over. Eating sweets can make people forget their worries for a short time. She opened her mouth to explain. Thanks, Zuemo took the ice cream. After a while, the two started chatting while eating. It seemed as if he had completely forgotten about the threat outside. Behind the row of shelves at the end of the supermarket, the middle-aged woman who was shouted down by Zuemo secretly glanced at Zuemo, who was chatting and laughing with Sally, with resentful eyes from time to time. Time gradually passed in such a quiet environment. 2 hours later, it was getting dark outside, and the power in the supermarket had been cut off. A group of people headed by the male protagonist planned to leave through the back door, but in less than half an hour, they ran back from the back door covered in blood and told the information about the monster they encountered. The anxiety in everyone's heart intensified again. Just at this time, the middle-aged woman began to preach her doomsday theory. At this time, bang, there was a sound on the glass outside the supermarket. The man closest to the window stepped forward and pointed the flashlight in his hand at the location where the sound came from. After seeing the object at that location clearly, he let out a scream, attracting everyone. At this time, everyone saw clearly a monster lying on the glass that was nearly half a meter long. The monster looked a bit like a locust, but the difference was that it had a structure like a scorpion's tail at its tail. If it was stung by this thing, it would probably be a big pain. Before everyone could recover, continuous sounds rang outside the window. Everyone looked outside the glass with a flashlight. At this time, the outside of the glass was already covered with dense monsters. Seeing this, Zuemo's dark divine book between his eyebrows flashed, and the 16 adamantium alloy flying knives he brought appeared outside the glass. Then, he turned into a stream of light that flashed at a very fast speed, and began to harvest these monsters that looked like locusts. Because his telekinesis could not penetrate into the fog, he could only harvest the monsters that appeared outside the supermarket. Despite this, in just a few minutes, he had already gained tens of thousands of points. Looking at the points that kept rising on the panel, Zuemo couldn't help but sigh in his heart. The ones who can really get a large amount of points are still this huge group of monsters. The evil thoughts of the Green Goblin that Grace had solved before only provided 10,000 points even if he killed the Green Goblin. He only got these points. It's better to slaughter these weak monsters. Only. It wasn't until half an hour later that the locusts outside the glass had been cleared, and Zuemo put away the adamantium flying knives. At the same time, his eyes lit up. The undead army also successfully found the source of the fog. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 170, The Origin of the Mist. Somewhere in the center of the island. Zuemo walked out of the space gate. This place looks like a valley. At this time, the valley has been completely occupied by the army of undead. Countless skeleton soldiers and undead knights are surrounding an irregular white crystal that is 8 or 9 meters high. The white mist, like billowing smoke, overflowed from the white crystal crazily. Obviously, this is the source of the mist. Originally, Zuemo thought that the mist and the monsters came from other planets or worlds through some space channel or something like that. But now it is obviously not the case. This mist is produced by this unknown crystal, and those monsters can also see some clues during the cleaning process of these undead armies. All of them are ordinary insects and animals shrouded in this mist. Mutated. After cleaning up these monsters, this range has been completely quiet. Even some insects can't be seen. And the appearance of those monsters still retains the original characteristics. Just like the monster outside the supermarket glass, it is likely to be mutated from locusts. Thinking of this, Zuemo looked at the huge crystal in front of him. In that case, the fog formed by this crystal should stimulate the evolution of organisms. But why does this effect have no effect on humans? He was a little confused. However, he did not dwell on this issue. Because of the proximity, Zuemo could clearly sense that the generation of this thick fog was consuming this crystal. He could feel that the volume of the crystal was gradually shrinking. Although it took less than half a minute, the shrinkage was not noticeable with the eyes, but Zuemo could still feel it with his mental power. He made a rough estimate. At this speed, at the latest by tomorrow morning, this huge crystal will completely disappear. At that time, the fog should also be gradually diluted and dissipated. Although I don't know what this crystal is used for, I can slowly study it. After taking it away, it's better to put it away first. Every second, the volume of the crystal is gradually shrinking. Thinking of this, Zuemo spent points, exchanged for a storage ring, and put it directly into it. The time in the storage ring is in a static state. After being put inside, the process of the crystal evaporating into mist also stopped. Before it is completely clear whether these mist will have an impact on the human body, Zuemo does not intend to stay in the mist for too long. However, before leaving, he summoned a million undead armies again. Then, as the order was issued, nearly 2 million undead armies began to expand rapidly toward the periphery point before. Because they had to explore the source of the missed point, these undead armies need to be searched in a carpet style manner, and no corner can be missed point. Now it is different point. They only need to spread out in all directions and destroy monsters directly after encountering them. These monsters are just ordinary animals and insects in the final analysis. The only difference is that their size has increased many times. Facing skeleton soldiers and undead knights, they have almost no resistance. In this way, they clean up very quickly point before dawn. It is not a problem to clean up the entire island point. As far as he knew, the army had already begun to clear the mutant monsters on the island. If he wanted to get as many points as possible, he had to get rid of them first. Point feeling the gradually dispersing army of undead, Zuemo stepped directly into the space gate in the supermarket point. Due to the power outage in the short time, no one noticed that he had left point at this time. Professor Herman had fallen into a deep sleep point. Looking at the other parties even breathing, Zuemo couldn't help but sigh point in this situation. He could still sleep. I don't know if the other party was careless or trusted Zuemo's promise too much point at this time. Point Sally also noticed Zuemo coming back point, waved to him point. Because of the monsters outside, everyone tried not to make any noise, and even when talking, they tried to keep the noise as low as possible. Point seeing this, Zuemo walked over Sally, reached out and patted the side. He whispered, "All the blankets in the warehouse have been snatched away by those people. Now there is only this one left. If you don't mind, you can use one with me tonight." Sally said this without a trace of shyness on her face. Point he naturally didn't think that the other party would like him in just a few hours at most. He had a slight liking for her from the previous chat. Zuemo had roughly understood Sally's personality. She was kind and a little careless. Zuemo originally planned to leave tonight, but seeing the other party like this, and Professor Herman had already fallen asleep, if he left alone, if a monster broke in at night, his previous efforts would not be in vain. Anyway, he didn't have too many requirements for a place to sleep, just something casual would be fine. Thinking of this, he waved to Sally. "Wait a minute." After saying that, he turned and walked into the darkness behind. In less than a minute, Zuemo came back with a double mattress and several blankets. Seeing this scene point, Sally showed a look of surprise on her face. "Where did you get this thing, Zu?" Emo shook his head. "I can't tell you this. Don't tell me." Seeing his mysterious look, Sally glanced at him with her beautiful eyes, and then began to organize these things excitedly. A moment later, the two of them nestled on the huge mattress, wrapped in several layers of blankets. "This mattress is so comfortable." Sally shook on it a few times, and couldn't help but sighed. Of course it's comfortable. This mattress was pulled from Zuemo's home. When he bought it before, he spent more than $600,000, but he didn't say it. Instead, he closed his eyes and fell asleep. Of course, before going to bed, he had arranged a circle of skeleton soldiers outside the supermarket to be on guard. The next morning point after Zuemo woke up, he immediately felt a sense of restraint on his body point. After opening his eyes, he found that Sally's hands and legs were all wrapped around him point. Zuemo saw this. He twisted his body slightly, trying to break free from the other party's lock point. However, the other party seemed to feel that his pillow was about to get out of control, and he increased the strength of his hands and legs again, locking Zuemo back. Feeling that his head was stuck in a soft place, Zuemo could only stop struggling. If he continued to struggle, he would be suspected of being a hooligan. This posture lasted for half an hour, and Sally finally opened her eyes in a daze point. Seeing the scene in front of her, the confusion in her eyes lasted for more than half a minute. Before she gradually came to her senses, she quickly put her hands and legs down from the other party's body point. With her personality, her face was a little red. "Sorry, I'm not honest when I sleep. It's okay." Zuemo waved his hand point. Strictly speaking, he took advantage of the situation, even though he didn't take the initiative point. But after all, he touched the other party's places that he shouldn't have touched. Chapter 171 Cleanup, 80 million points. Fortunately, the two of them were located in the corner of the supermarket. No one noticed the situation here. After Sally got up, there was an unnatural look on her face. "Well, I'm going to wash up." After saying that, she hurriedly got up and ran towards the bathroom at the back of the supermarket. Zuemo looked at the other person's leaving figure, smiled and shook his head. He stood up and came to the floor to ceiling window. Looking out the window. The source of the fog has been taken away by Zuemo, and there is no source. After another night, the fog outside has become much lighter. At this time, people in the supermarket also noticed this situation. Their faces showed joy. Zuemo estimated that, as long as the sun rose, in at most 2 hours, the fog would completely disappear. Got a little feel for it. At this time, the undead army had gathered in the center of the island. Last night, they had swept through the entire fog 3 times. Of course, during this process, the undead army had deliberately avoided the location where the troops were stationed. I opened the points panel and took a look. The points had reached more than 80 million. Regarding this, Zuemo didn't show much surprise on his face. When I first started looking for the source of the fog, I gained more than 20 million points in just 2 hours, although it was originally because the monsters were denser near the center of the source point. But at that time, the area was less than 1% of the island point in the remaining 99% of the area. Even though the monsters are sparse, the total number is definitely much greater than in the central area point. Taking advantage of the time to go to the bathroom, Zuemo collected the undead army in the fog. New York, Queens, in a 6-story building covering an area of tens of thousands of square meters near the coast in the north. As a space door opened, Zuemo walked out with Professor Herman and Sally. The two of them stared at all this with wide eyes and a look of surprise on their faces. It feels more magical than the monster in the fog outside the supermarket. The 3 people appeared in the largest office reserved for Zuemo on the 6th floor of the building. The office area is very large. It's more than 100 square meters. The entire wall on the south side is composed of several huge floor-to-ceiling windows. The view outside the windows is very wide, and the sea is more than 50 meters away. The two stood in front of the window and glanced outside the window. Although I'm not sure where this place is, it is an indisputable fact that I have left the fog. Where is this? After being stunned for a moment, Professor Herman asked, New York. This is where Professor you will work from now on. Zuemo answered. At this time, Sally also reacted after hearing the words, this is New York, or 1,000 kilometers away from the island. She took out her cell phone and opened it and took a look. Sure enough, the signal had been restored. She looked at the positioning information above and had a look of disbelief on her face. Oh my god, how did you do that? Sally glanced at the place where the space door disappeared just now and let out an exclamation. You can think of it as a magic trick. Zuemo smiled and said something perfunctory. At this time there were 2 knocks at the door, and then Grace opened the door and walked in. There was a contract between the two of them, and Zuemo notified her to come over as soon as he came back. Since buying this building, Grace has moved here. Of course it's mainly for convenience. Boss. After entering the door, Grace greeted Zuemo. Zuemo nodded, pointed to Herman and said, this is Professor Herman. You go and arrange a place for him first. Okay. Grace nodded. Then he took the professor and left the room directly. After seeing the 2 people leaving, Sally looked Zuemo up and down in surprise. Is this your company? Zuemo met the other party's gaze and shook his head. This is not a company, it is a research institute, but it is indeed mine. Hearing this, Sally's eyes lit up. I didn't realize it before. Are you so rich? Well, it's not bad. Zuemo glanced sideways at the other party, with a faint smile on his face. Really? Rich man, please support me. Seeing Zuemo's admission, Sally let out a shout. Then he came behind Zuemo and stretched out his hand to knead his shoulders a few times. How's the strength? Let me tell you, I have learned professionally from your Zaya Kingdom's TUI. Take, by the way, that's what the word says. Seeing the other party's appearance, Zuemo smiled and shook his head. Why, aren't you planning to go back to Grand Island? According to my estimation, things there will be resolved soon. Here, this Sally shook her head. Now that something like this happened on the island, I don't plan to go back. If something like this happens again, I can guarantee that I can escape alive. The only pity is that this is a relatively high-paying job. You don't know. The cashier's job alone on the island only costs $4,000 per month, which is almost twice as high as outside. At this point, a trace of regret appeared on her face. Hearing the other party's words, Zuemo showed a trace of surprise on his face. So, your home is not on Grand Island? Of course not. The reason I work on the island is just because the salary and benefits on the island are better, Sally explained. Okay, Zuemo nodded. If you really want to stay here, go find Grace later and let her arrange it for you. Don't worry, the salary is definitely higher than your job as a cashier. The operation of this laboratory naturally requires some auxiliary staff. These are not technically demanding, they are just responsible for some chores, and Sally is fully capable of doing them. Hearing Zuemo's words, Sally showed a look of surprise on her face. Really? Thank you, boss. Sally was so excited that she bowed 90 degrees directly to Zuemo. Then she came behind Zuemo and kneaded him hard. Boss, how's the strength? Well, but it can be heavier. Okay, boss. Zuemo sat in the office chair with a smile on his face with his eyes closed. I don't know why, but when he was with Sally, he felt more relaxed than ever before. Maybe because of her personality. After handing Sally to Grace, Zuemo left here directly. On the 5th floor of the laboratory, Sally followed Grace and walked towards the dormitory. Looking at Grace walking in front with a cold face. She asked carefully, I don't know what job I will be responsible for in the future. Grace looked at her and answered expressionlessly, you will be an assistant secretary for the time being and help me deal with some unimportant things during this period of time. I will tell you what specific work you will do when you go to work tomorrow. Well, okay, what is the salary standard? At present, it is $32,000 a month, and it will increase after you get familiar with it. Grace kept a blank expression from beginning to end. It's not that she has any opinion on Sally, but she has this expression on everyone. Hearing this, Sally was stunned. She even doubted her ears. She asked stupidly, 32,000, is it US dollars? Grace glanced at her. Why, do you think that in the United States, our salary will be in rubles? No. The stunned look on Sally's face was instantly replaced by surprise. 32,000 US dollars. It was equivalent to her previous salary of almost 8 months. Thinking of this, she almost jumped up. However, considering that Grace was present, she gradually controlled her emotions. Chapter 172 Star Level Beast God, Sky Tearing Claws. In the next period of time, Zuemo stayed at home almost all the time, constantly practicing the Thunderblade and the God Atlas. He only went to the laboratory occasionally to take a look at the progress of the research point. After recruiting Professor Herman, the laboratory had already started researching Spider-Man potions. However, almost a year had passed, and there was not much progress yet. But Zuemo was not in a hurry. According to the speed of time in this world, he had plenty of time. When he invested in this plan, he had already expected that this would be a long-term project. This day. When Zuemo was practicing the 60-second picture of the God Atlas, his heart suddenly moved, and then his face showed excitement. The opportunity for a breakthrough came from the Beast God. Thinking of this without any hesitation, Zuemo opened a space door and stepped in, and went directly to the basement of the laboratory. At the same time, Grace's figure also appeared in this room. In the center of the room, there was a device similar to the nutrition cabin that Zuemo exchanged. This thing was developed by Zuemo after the laboratory was just built. It was a dormant chamber, because Zuemo had considered the preservation of his body after he left this world. After all, according to the flow rate of this world, he left for a month, and more than a year would have passed here. The way of preserving the body like in the weird world would not work at all. This thing itself already had some prototypes in aerospace. It was not difficult for Reed and others to research it. It took less than a month to successfully research it. After giving Grace some instructions, Zuemo lay down directly in it. With the closure of the hatch, the dormant chamber was officially started. In a moment. Zuemo had returned to the original world. As soon as his body fell to the ground, he closed his eyes and his consciousness was transferred to the body of the Beast God clone. In the space where the Beast God clone was the Beast God clone, who had closed his eyes, suddenly opened his eyes. The figure stood up directly, opened his mouth and let out a huge roar to the sky. Then endless cosmic energy poured into his body, and finally, due to the strong suction force, 7 or 8 vortices composed of cosmic energy formed around the body of the beast god. While madly devouring cosmic energy, the body of the beast god also began to rapidly expand. This expansion is different from the change of size by using the magical power of the law of heaven and earth, but the real increase of the body. In less than half an hour, the length of the beast god's body has increased several times. The body has reached a length of more than 100 kilometers. From the perspective of the human body, it is almost as big as the sky and the sun. This body size is comparable to the size of a city. After performing the law of heaven and earth, the body size is almost larger than the area of a state. In the United States, with this body size, it is easy to destroy a continent with a casual blow. As the growth rate of the beast god's body slowed down, the speed of absorbing cosmic energy around it did not slow down. On the contrary, because of its larger body size, the energy absorption rate was more than 10 times faster than before. The energy vortex surrounding the body also increased to 10 times the original diameter as the absorbed energy increased. At a certain moment, the energy in the beast god's body frantically gathered towards the position of the brain. Finally, a huge crystal was formed at the position of the brain. Pronucleus, the core of the energy in the beast god's body. The moment the pronucleus was formed, the laws of time and space comprehended by the beast god's clone began to turn into lines, and were engraved on the pronucleus. When all the law marks were engraved on the pronucleus, Zuemo only felt a boom in his brain. He felt a huge space through the pronucleus. There was no life in this space, and it looked bare. But the area was not small. It was hundreds of thousands of square kilometers in size. After the world inside the body was formed, the cosmic energy absorbed by the beast god began to gradually flow into this world. As more and more energy flowed in, the area of the world inside the body began to gradually expand. With the expansion, this world began to produce a trace of green under the nourishment of energy. As if time had accelerated, the green quickly spread across the world, and eventually, the entire world turned into a green ocean. This process lasted for a whole day. It was not until the space inside the body expanded to tens of millions of square kilometers that the energy vortex around the surface of the beast god gradually shrank and disappeared. The beast god was also completely promoted to the star level. With the addition of the perfect genes of the beast god, the pure physical strength of the beast god reached 100 billion tons. Relying solely on the body, can break through the speed of light. Even against those ordinary dimensional demons, Zuemo was not inferior at all. Of course, the extent of the strength improvement is more than that. He closed his eyes and felt it. After being promoted to the star level, the beast god clone once again awakened a talent ability. From the description of this ability in his mind, Zuemo learned that the name of this talent ability is called Sky Tearing Claw. The beast god clone felt it slightly. Then he flashed away from the star tower and appeared in the outer universe. His cold eyes looked at a lifeless planet thousands of kilometers away from him. The planet was about half the size of the Earth. The body of the beast god clone began to expand rapidly. After growing to its maximum, it raised the right claw in front of it, activated the Sky Tearing Claw, and gently waved it towards the distant planet. The space in front of the claw instantly twisted. As if separated by an endless distance, the claw directly scratched the surface of the planet. 5 huge claw marks flashed. A huge roar came from the planet. In Zuemo's eyes, the planet, which was half the size of the Earth, was directly pierced to the center of the Earth by the scratches. Countless magma gushed out from the center of the Earth. In a moment, a scene like hell appeared on the planet, with endless magma and thick smoke raging wildly. Seeing this scene, Zuemo's eyes flashed with a trace of shock. Unknowingly, have I grown to this extent? He couldn't help but sigh. According to the power of this Sky Tearing Claw, if it falls on the Earth, it may not completely destroy the Earth, but it will definitely cause the Earth to enter a mass extinction. Moreover, the power of the Sky Tearing Claw is not just that. He even felt a time disorder around the claw at the moment of the Sky Tearing Claw. If it is reduced in size and used on humans, I'm afraid that if you don't understand the law of time, there is no way to avoid this claw. Chapter 173 Star Tower. New abilities unlocked. After experimenting with the newly awakened ability point, the beast god clone turned into the size of a house cat and teleported back to the villa again. Then he flashed into the star tower. The consciousness returned from the beast god clone to the main body. Zuemo slowly opened his eyes. There was a burst of movement in the sea of consciousness and the macro planet in his dungeon at the same time. The realm of the main body is also about to break through to the star level. His expression moved. He turned on the tenfold time acceleration in the training room, closed his eyes again, and silently felt the changes in the macro planet. After the training room turned on the tenfold time acceleration, even the density of the cosmic energy inside would increase tenfold. At this time, the rich cosmic energy inside began to swarm into his body frantically. These energies first rushed into the macro planet. In the dungeon. With the continuous influx of cosmic energy, the size of the macro planet began to gradually shrink. When it shrunk to a certain extent, the energy density in the macro planet became larger and larger. After shrinking to the extreme, the planet has turned into a fiery red color, like a burning star, and the speed of energy inflow has not slowed down. After the red star absorbed energy again, its size began to slowly increase. After half an hour, the volume of the star has grown to 3 times its original size. Until this time, the energy pouring into it gradually stopped. These energies began to flow towards the macro planet in the sea of consciousness. After going through the same process, the macro planet in the sea of consciousness also turned into a star. At this point, Zuemo's strength has also been successfully promoted to the star level. Open the system panel. As Zuemo's voice fell, the familiar system panel appeared in front of him again. Name: Zuemo. Age: 23 years old. Strength: 100 million tons. Speed: 150,000 km/s. Telekinesis: 100 million tons. Special ability: freeze space points: 88,483,200 points. Level: first order star level, gene level. 100 times. Avatar: space-time beast god. 100 million tons of strength. The heaviest aircraft carrier in the world weighs only about 100,000 tons according to his strength. He can lift thousands of such aircraft carriers at once. In other words, according to his strength, he can throw aircraft carriers around like toys. Of course, a person's strength cannot be measured simply by the strength of his strength, but despite this, according to his current strength level, he dare not say that he can definitely kill Odin. But if the two fight, Odin may only be able to escape. Maybe it will be very difficult for the other party to break his defense. You know, the increase in strength is naturally accompanied by an increase in physical strength. Otherwise, if you want to exert this strength, your body will not be able to bear it and will collapse. How strong can a body that can withstand 100 million tons of force be? I'm afraid that vibranium and adamantium are all scum in front of his body. Even the Uru alloy, which is known as the strongest metal in Asgardan, used to make Thor's hammer and storm axe, is probably far inferior to his physical strength. Slowly open your eyes. Congratulations to the master for successfully advancing to the star level, and the authority of the star tower is further opened. Crossing G's cheerful voice sounded in the training room. Zuemo heard the words, his eyes moved, and he flashed to the hall of the center. Crossing G's figure then appeared in front of him. Congratulations, master. As soon as he appeared, Crossing clasped his hands together, bowed and said with a smile, today, the other party's hair was combed into a bun like Chun-Li, with red accessories on his head, and a red Chiangsam on his body, which only covered the base of his thighs. The key point is that even the Chiangsam is so short, and there are nearly 30 centimeters of slits on both sides. The slits reach Xingji's waist. Under the slit, her fair and smooth skin is exposed, and a red belt is faintly visible from the slit. Combined with her golden ratio figure of more than 1.7 meters, Zuemo's mouth is dry. Noticing Zuemo's gaze, Xingji's mouth corners slightly raised, and then the thumb and index finger of her right hand pinched the red belt under the Chiangsam, pulled it hard, and then the fingers loosened. Snap. Ah, Xingji exclaimed, and Zuemo felt a headache. Xingji, are all the so-called more permissions on you? Yes, all postures and all skins are unlocked. Master, do you want to try it? After saying that, Xingji also stretched out her little tongue to lick the corners of her red mouth. Okay, Xingji, can you be serious? Take a deep breath and suppress the restlessness in his heart. Ha ha ha, Xingji laughed sweetly. Okay, Xingji put away the smile on her face, turned her body, and the Qiangsum on her body turned into a teacher's uniform. There was a pair of gold-rimmed glasses on her nose and a teaching stick in her hand. Listen carefully, Zhu classmate. After saying that, she turned around, and a small blackboard suddenly appeared behind her. The blackboard was only half her height. She bent down and twisted her body into an exaggerated S-shaped posture, pointing at the content on the small blackboard with the teaching stick in her hand. First of all, the time acceleration in the training room can be increased to 100 times. Zuemo saw the enchanting posture of the other party, which showed her own advantages to the fullest. Especially the long legs wrapped in black silk, which looked even more slender. This woman must have done it on purpose. There is no doubt about this. Which serious teacher would dress like this in class and put the blackboard so low, deliberately posing like this? However, Zuemo did not stop the other party. Otherwise, the other party might do something else, and there is nothing wrong with this. In the movies I have seen before, as long as the teacher puts on this kind of outfit, the students will be highly focused, and their eyes will be wide open. Point with Crossing G's explanation. Zuemo also understood the function of the Star Tower unlock point in general. It is not much different from the original point after all. For treasures of the Star Tower, there is almost no difference between Zuemo's Planeta Re-level and Star level point. The first is that as Crossing G has already said, the acceleration function of the training room can be accelerated to 100 times 4 days, and the outside world can be spent in it for a year. In this case, it is undoubtedly more suitable to be in it than the world he just went to. The second is that the taming space in the Star Tower has been opened. The so-called taming space is to imprint the soul mark on the creatures sent by Zuemo. From then on, this person will completely obey the orders of the owner of the Star Tower, that is, Zuemo point. This function is similar to the ability of the soul mark point. However, it is unknown how many times higher than the soul mark point. Not only is there no limit on the number of people, but as long as Zuemo can catch the enemy and send him in, as long as the level does not exceed the level of the Star Tower, he can be enslaved instantly. What is the current level of the Star Tower awarded by the system? Zuemo is not clear about this, but even the original Star Tower, people who can resist in this world do not know whether it exists. Chapter 174 Soul Slavery Space. After the explanation point, Crossing G brought Zuemo to a vast space similar to the Forbidden Space Point. The space was endless, with an endless grassland on the ground. A huge ball of light was suspended in the air above the grassland. Is this the domestication space? Zuemo looked at the space. Yes, as long as you can bring the other party to this space, this will perform soul slavery on your behalf. Crossing G pointed to the huge ball of light in the sky and said point. Zuemo nodded and waved his hand lightly. The Banshee Eluo Lady and the 3 vampire brides in a forbidden space were moved here by him. The 4 people who had just been moved here had a hint of confusion on their faces at the beginning. However, after seeing Zuemo and Crossing G standing aside, they immediately understood and hurried to the 2 of them, bowing. Master, yes. Zuemo nodded point. After entering the Star Tower, Crossing G had obviously taught them how to practice point. Now the strength of the 3 have changed dramatically point, because the concentration of cosmic energy in the forbidden space, where they are located, is dozens of times that of the outside world, and the physiques of the 4 people are not ordinary people. Now their strength has reached the level of war generals among them. Eluo Lele, who practiced later, is the strongest point. She has reached the level of high-level war generals. After all, the bloodline of Asgard is indeed much stronger than that of vampires. After looking at the 4 people, Zuemo looked at the huge ball of light in the sky point. As his mind moved, 4 rays of light shot out from the ball of light, covering all of them. The faces of the 4 people instantly became confused, but this confusion lasted less than 2 seconds, and then they recovered, and the light column covering the 4 people disappeared directly. So fast? Zuemo sighed. But it is normal to think about it. After all, their strength is not even as good as that of ants compared to the Star Tower, and it would not take too long to cast the soul slavery secret on them. He now clearly felt that there was a certain connection between them. Not only could he control their bodies, but he could even control their thoughts. In other words, whatever Zuemo wanted them to think, They would think it really deserves to be a complete soul slavery, which is really terrible in this way. As long as they want, they will not have their own thoughts at all of course. Zuemo did not intend to change the other party's mind at this time. The four people looked at Zuemo with a slight change in their eyes after the soul slavery secret was cast. They would regard Zuemo as the closest person from the bottom of their hearts. In short, it was similar to mental ***, and their thoughts had been forced to change into the shape of Zuemo. In a forbidden space. Zuemo appeared in front of two villas by the sea with four people. This is where the four women lived before. Crossing G did not follow them, but left directly and went somewhere unknown. After seeing that Crossing G was gone, the four of them also breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. Compared with Zuemo, Crossing G brought them more pressure. Since they were locked up here, Zuemo rarely came here. Only Crossing G would come to train them from time to time, and even the skills were taught by Crossing G. And not only that, Crossing G often taught them some strange things. For this kind of thing, Luo later was very interested in learning, but the other three women, after all, lived in the 80th century, with limited channels for obtaining information, and their family backgrounds were all considered nobles. They had never been exposed to this aspect, and they blushed every time they heard it. Seeing that Crossing G had left, Luo later directly stuck to Zuemo's body. "Master, I just learned some new knowledge, do you want to try it?" Hearing her explicit words, the faces of the other three women on the side were instantly flushed. "Really?" Hearing this, Zuemo showed a playful smile on his face. What he learned was probably not new knowledge, but new postures. However, he did not refuse. In the parallel world for a year, he was almost immersed in cultivation. It was not bad to relax occasionally. Seeing that Zuemo did not refuse. Luo later immediately pulled Zuemo with a smile and walked towards the villa on the left. The three women behind did show a trace of entanglement on their faces. From the knowledge that Crossing G usually taught them, they understood what it meant. But when they really faced Zuemo, they were still a little at a loss. Zuemo walked to the door of the villa and turned to look at the three people standing there. "Come here with the three of you." After being cast with the secret method of soul slavery, they were all considered his people, and Zuemo naturally had no courtesy. After all, who can resist the temptation of three little tiger teeth? His voice awakened the three women from their entanglement. After hearing this voice, they all breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. As if they had put down some heavy burden. "Oh, Oklahoma," they agreed in unison, and walked towards the villa together. In this forbidden area, in order to let the few people adapt. It was also changed to a state of 24 hours a day, alternating between day and night. When Zuemo and the others entered, it was still morning in this world. When they came out. It was almost noon the next day. It must be said that after practicing the devouring method, their strength in certain aspects has also been greatly improved. What is the result when the perpetual motion machine meets the perpetual motion machine? It can't be stopped at all. But obviously, the four women still need to improve their impact resistance. Only the three vampire women came out after Zuemo. And Luo later was the strongest and resisted the greatest pressure, so she was still in a coma at this time. After more than an hour of rest, the three women have recovered a little. Under the leadership of Zuemo, several people came to the backyard of another villa. Sitting on the stone chair in the pavilion in the backyard, Zuemo stretched out his hand and waved gently. More than a dozen buckets of blood have appeared in the pavilion. "Try it. Is this blood helpful to your strength improvement?" This blood was extracted by Zuemo from the bodies of the mythical beasts in Taro Village. During the time he lived in Taro Village, Zuemo did not let go of any animal he saw, such as Dijiang, nine-tailed fox, dragon horse, Buddha dog, phoenix. He caught them one by one and drew blood from them. The only one he let go was the dragon at the bottom of the water. It was not that Zuemo could not beat it, but Zuemo was not sure whether the blood would be of much use to the three women. However, after trying the blood and finding it useful, he would go to the dragon to borrow some. He was very sensible and only drew 1/6 of the blood in their bodies. It did not have much impact on them. It only took a while for them to recover. The people in Taro Village did not stop him. After seeing this, the result was that all the beasts in Taro Village were in a state of anemia for a long time, and they looked sick and listless all day long. but the results were very gratifying. Zuemo directly collected hundreds of barrels of such blood. Chapter 175, Blood of the Divine Beast. The three women heard this, and their eyes fell on the blood on the ground. As vampires, they felt a lot of energy from the blood on the ground. Is this specially prepared for us? The youngest Aelila looked at Zuemo and asked, otherwise, this thing seems to be useful to you. Hearing Zuemo's words, Aelila stepped forward and rushed into Zuemo's arms with the ball. Thank you, master. Okay, you try it and see if this thing is useful to you. Zuemo pointed at the blood on the ground and said, yeah. The three nodded when they heard this. Each of them came to a bucket of blood, showing their fangs in their mouths, and their eyes showed red light. In a moment, a blood-colored energy overflowed from the blood and poured into the bodies of the three people. In the final analysis, vampires suck blood for the blood energy contained in the blood, not because of how much effect the blood has on them. So Crossing G specially taught them a method that only needs to absorb blood energy. This also avoids the trouble of them having to drink blood. After all, although they have been transformed into vampires, their concepts cannot be changed in a short time. If they are asked to drink blood, they are still a little bit unacceptable for a while. Soon. The energy in the blood in the buckets in front of the three people has been absorbed by the three people. As the absorption is completed, crackling sounds are heard from the bodies of the three people. A moment later, the black-haired Verona opened her eyes first. How is it? Zuemo asked. The strength has increased by 1000 kilograms. Verona said with a look of surprise. This is equivalent to the results of their 10 days of practice. Hearing this, Zuemo nodded. This method is indeed feasible. Practicing the devouring method, coupled with the characteristics of vampires, allows them to absorb the special energy contained in the blood to improve their physical strength. Soon, Irila and Marika also woke up. The two also showed a look of surprise on their faces. Zuemo waved his hand casually. He took out all the blood stored in the storage ring. There were hundreds of barrels of this blood with huge energy, which was enough to make them all break through to the level of the primary war god. You should absorb all the blood first, and after that, I will get you some more. According to the current strength of the three people, he did not dare to use the blood of the beast god for them for the time being. That thing was too abnormal. He was afraid that, if he was not careful, the three people would explode directly. Then, he could only look for some blood of strange beasts first. But there were only a few beasts in Taro Village. After being beaten half to death by him last time, they might not be able to recover now. And he could not always take advantage of these beasts. If he came a few more times, I'm afraid that these beasts would not be able to bear it. And the blood of the dragon was also limited. Under the condition of ensuring that it would not affect the other party, it was estimated that too much could not be drawn out. It seemed that he needed to find a place where he could stably obtain high energy blood. But after thinking about it, he had no clue for the time being. He could only talk about it later. This blood is enough for the three of them to absorb for a while. The three looked at the barrels filled with blood on the ground, and their faces showed uncontrollable surprise. Thank you, master. After saying that, the three excitedly rushed directly towards Zuemo. Wait, why are you pulling my pants? It seems that the lesson I taught you last night is not enough. East of Death Island. A few kilometers away from Zuemo's villa. At this time, a villa complex has been built here. There are more than a dozen villas, located in various locations along the coast. These villas are all newly built as residences for some high-rise buildings on Death Island. Located in a villa at the back. Zuemo walked out of the space gate. Since he learned the space gate, he has walked through the door less and less. It was already night. Emma walked out of the bathroom wrapped in a bath towel. After noticing the figure in the living room from the corner of her eye, her face changed. After seeing clearly that the figure was Zuemo, she breathed a sigh of relief, and the diamond-like skin on her body gradually returned to normal. Huh, you scared me. Could you have notified me before you came? Emma showed a trace of helplessness on her face. Hearing the other party's coquettishness, Zuemo put down the bottle in his hand and picked up the cup. Sorry, I forgot in a hurry. Emma gave him a good look. Stepping forward, she also poured a glass for herself and then pulled Zuemo to sit on the sofa in the living room. It's just right. I have something to talk to you about. Zuemo looked at her in confusion. What's the matter? So anxious? Emma sighed. It's not about cultivation. As Emma told the story, Zuemo also understood the whole story. After nearly 2 years of cultivation, the ordinary soldiers on the island have now generally reached the level of generals, and the few outstanding ones have reached the level of high-level generals. This is after embarking on the path of cultivation. Without providing too much beast meat point, this has led to the fact that the strength of these people has far surpassed that of mutants such as Raven and Fireman point. Raven has come to Emma several times. He hopes to practice like those people point, but Emma did not get Zuemo's order, and did not dare to pass on the practice method to them at will point. After all, without complete control over them, no one can guarantee whether they will leak the practice method point. Her method of brainwashing people subtly is quite overbearing. After using it, it is equivalent to completely changing and erasing the other party's original consciousness, and the other party will completely lose himself. Point originally, Emma and Raven knew each other before, and their relationship was considered good. Point she did not want to use this method on the other party. Point as for the soul seal, although she has cultivated the second one now, she did not rashly use it on Raven. Maybe Zuemo will need it somewhere else at that time. She wanted to ask Zuemo, but she had no way to contact him. Where is the other party now? After listening, Zuemo asked. Before, if you want the other party to keep a secret, the best way is to use a slave chip. But now, with the existence of the soul slavery space, it is much simpler. She has been accepting tasks crazily during this period. She should be out on a mission now. Emma replied. Okay, let me know when she comes back, but how can I contact you? It seems that your phone has been turned off for a long time. After Emma's reminder, Zuemo finally reacted. He waved his hand, took the phone out of the storage ring, and turned it on. The moment the phone was turned on, a series of reminders sounded. Zuemo looked at the countless missed calls on the phone and thought for a while. It is obviously not reliable to always contact him by phone. Most of the time, he can't be contacted at all. He looked up at Emma beside him. There is another way we can contact quickly, but this method seems a little unfair to you, Zu. Emma is talking about the soul slavery secret method. This secret method is many times more powerful than the soul seal. Even if they are in a parallel world, they can transmit information through the secret method. Hearing this, Emma looked at the other party with a smile. Why do you think it is fair to keep me outside like a mistress? Hearing this, Zuemo's face was embarrassed. Okay, stop talking nonsense. If you have a way, use it quickly. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.